And so we're back with more superhero. As I said, it will be like big bouts in between, and I think it's been quite long enough, at least in my perception. I don't know when I'm gonna release this video though, so you can have that idea on it. But on that note, the Infinity Stones, time, space, power. Just give me a second. Give me a second. Time, space, power. Reality. Soul. Yeah, there, I got them all. Unless there's a Secret Six one, which, given comic books, it's not completely unlikely that there is a Secret Six one. Which you can tell me down below if there is one, or if I'm somehow got them completely wrong, which is also a possibility for me, because it's me, Mech Wolf. I am allowed to make mistakes. I am a wolf of many words, truths, and, well, more mistakes every once in a while. But anyway, on that note, yeah, I'm not sure how long the Infinity Stones have been a part of Marvel, but they've, well, as you know, ever since the creation of the MCU, they've been a big plot point. And they even put them in the latest Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I haven't played that one because I didn't hear anything good about it. Then again, it's also not made by the original creators of, well, the series, so just take that with what you will. And yeah, these stones have been around for a long time, and I think the Infinity Gauntlet was made by Thanos. I'm actually not sure. I don't know how many people have wielded the Infinity Gauntlet. I know Iron Man has, obviously, Thanos, who used it to make himself a girlfriend at one point, which is all kinds of weird and messed up in all kinds of ways. But on that note, I should say this. The Infinity Stones have always made me wonder if there's some sort of equivalent in DC. I don't think there is. I think this is a wholly Marvel thing, but I could be wrong. What else should I say? There's one more thing I wanted to mention before we got into the video, which is that the Infinity Stones, with, how long they've been around, obviously they've probably been used to use all kinds of things, but I've always wondered if they were able to kill a Celestial. Like, are the stones, like, made of, literal parts of the universe itself? So could they kill a Celestial, which honestly isn't that high of a bar, considering there are many, many, many beings that could kill a Celestial, but it's a question I wanted to ask, because it's one that popped up into my head earlier, before we were about to do this video. But yeah, you guys can answer me down in the comments if you wish, and obviously we're going to get into it. Alright, ready everyone? Let's go.
Mind, reality.
It was mind,
powers,
not soul.
space, time, and soul.
Okay, maybe I'm just wrong about it. Okay, so it is 6. God, I'm wrong within the first 10 seconds. It isn't the first. It's, yeah, within the first 10 seconds. God, there are 6. I thought there was 5 for some reason.
Pillars that together can control the universe. These are the Infinity Stones, and they are some of the
I forgot about the Mind
artifacts
Stone
in all of Marvel. The Infinity Stones are not exactly obscure, though. Certainly not after the
definitely
MCU
not.
used them so heavily. Most people, even non-comics fans and the general public, are aware of the foundation of the stones at least. But there's a lot more beyond that foundation.
I also had a weird thought, and this is gonna be my last really quick stop. Have they ever sold, like, candied, like, Infinity Stones, like ones that you eat? I don't know why, but that just randomly popped into my head. That seems like something, Disney would do, so I just wanted to ask.
The Infinity Stones first appeared in the 1970s and are still getting relevant new material today, so there's a lot to discuss.
Is that thing on Adam Warlock's head?
This one very long video, I am going to be telling you everything you need to know about the Infinity Stones.
Okay.
What they are, where they came from, how they work, what other stones exist, and a ton more
there's more
nuances. So settle in, grab yourself a snack, ideally some sort of small, multicolored candy, maybe
Ooh,
jelly beans if you have
jelly
any.
beans work.
Jelly beans are going to be plot relevant as we get into this.
Wait, what?
Now that you're all suitably confused
How?
about what I could possibly mean by that, without further ado, let's begin our deep dive into the Infinity Stones.
Ooh.
We'll begin the first history section of this video with the first publication
Adam
appearance
Warlock.
of the stones in any form, though much like how they were handled in the MCU, they would not be introduced all at once.
Of course.
The debut would take a couple years, but also like the MCU, it would culminate in something very familiar. The mad
Infinity
Titan
Gauntlet.
Thanos going on an epic quest throughout the galaxy to recover and assemble the 6 soul gems.
What?
Okay, hang on. Look, comic book
Okay.
characters and concepts changing over their history is a regular thing.
Oh yeah, their names
Marvel's been
change all
around
the
for
time.
decades, things are bound to shift. But in the case of the Infinity Stones, the changes aren't especially notable. The stones have
Okay.
this weird thing going on where their core concept has always been the same. They are 6 cool rocks that allow you to control
Okay,
the
always
universe.
6.
But pretty much everything else about them has been altered over the years. This includes
Alrighty, then.
both words of their name, as yes, the Infinity Stones were originally called the Soul Gems when they first appeared in 1971.
Okay,
They
good
didn't
to
even have their
know.
individual names
The
yet.
time was
Nope.
determined that the 6 soul gems would be his, the Mad Titan.
Power Gem, Mind Gem, etc. They were just the Soul Gems as a group. So for the sake of simplicity,
Okay,
during
so
this
they're
section,
all
I'm just
Soul
going to refer to
Gems?
them by their colors.
Alright.
The first of these to be seen was the Green Gem, appearing in an Adam Warlock comic where it is gifted to the genetically perfected superhuman by his very brief mentor character, the High Evolutionary.
The High Evolutionary
Warlock
is here,
would wear
huh?
the green gem on
Of
his
course.
forehead for a while, continuing to use it into the next issue where
How
he
do you
and
use
it's
it?
blue.
Oh,
And the gem is blue now, one issue later. Okay,
Oh,
hold on. Let
God.
me address that.
Okay,
One thing
tell
you
me.
might notice if you are paying very close attention to the images in this video is that the gems don't really have consistent colors for a bit.
wonderful.
This is not a lore thing, it's just an old comics thing.
It
See,
sounds about
comics
right.
during this era were notoriously bad at keeping details of things
Oh, God, he's
consistent
yellow.
when it came to
Green.
color work. As a very
Yeah.
extreme example of this to prove my point, see the first appearance of Scarlet Witch, where
She's
on the cover,
green.
her costume is green.
I was wondering about this because I saw this image and I was very confused by who this was. I was so confused, like, is that Scarlet Witch? Because she has this, like, Scarlet Witch in early comics always has this weird trapezoid on her head. So I actually didn't know if that was her due to the fact that she's the Scarlet Witch, but she's green hair, so it's like, the color coding kind of feels what? Know what I mean? Like, it's like looking and seeing the skies suddenly green.
If they can make Scarlet Witch green, then you
Yeah.
better believe they're going to mess up on the tiny little gems on people's faces. It
Of
will
course.
stabilize as we get closer to the modern day, but for now, we are just going to have to deal with it.
As we always
Anyway,
do.
This supposed to be green gem didn't have a lot of lore to it yet. It was just a magic thing that Adam Warlock had.
Oh,
but over the subsequent
okay.
months and years,
What
other
is he
ones would
killing?
be introduced in
What
a
is that
variety
thing?
of places. 2 gems would be controlled by cosmic entities in
Of
a
course.
Spider-Man and Warlock team-up. Another
Spider-Man
would be
and
found by
Warlock.
Kree under the surface of an alien planet in a
Alright.
Captain Marvel comic.
Interesting.
All culminating in Avengers Annual number 7
Ah.
in 1977.
The Avengers.
This would be the comic that established the Soul
Special
Gems as
guest.
a unified set, and also connected them to their most iconic villain, that being
Thanos, the
Thanos.
Mad Titan.
Though this was not Thanos' first appearance.
Oh.
He had already been a major crossover villain
Ah.
with the plan that he is most notorious for. A bit
Oh,
before
I
this,
see what's
Thanos
going
had
on.
already tried to gain infinite power and extinguish life within the universe.
Oh.
For a
How did he
very
do that
different
before?
reason than his MCU counterpart, but we'll get into that in a second.
We know.
This time, though,
Listen,
didn't-
I know the reason why. He wants to bang Death. This was even a plot point in, like, Marvel versus Capcom. He, for some reason, the always comic version just really wants to bang the physical manifestation of Death, who is always rejects him, and that's that bit where I get into where I learned from Sir Superhero that I literally made his girlfriend there. Well, he made her, and apparently he didn't make it to where she could breathe in space. So that's another thing. Also, I will say, this old art is very nice, but color correction is not their strong suit, I guess. I guess happens all the time though.
Use the Infinity Stones or the Soul Gems, as they didn't exist yet. Instead, his weapon of choice was a reality-bending artifact called the Cosmic Cube. He was brought down by the Avengers before his plan.
I'm gonna stop this real quick again just to give the side that I didn't know that like the quantum cube or whatever you want to call it, that cube had actually really deep lore. I thought it was just made for the movies.
To fruition, but this comic establishes that he survived and then immediately began looking for other artifacts that he could use to go for round 2.
Okay.
At this point, he discovered the nature of the Soul Gems, and the comic gives us a backstory on them. At least a tiny, tiny scrap of backstory.
What do you mean?
The gems in their original state were the most bare bones that they could possibly be.
I see.
Get the Soul Gems, control the universe. That is literally
then you win.
it. The comic doesn't really explain how they work or where they came from, and it even acknowledges that it's not going to explain this. We do know how Thanos found out about the gems. He got an ancient scroll that told about them.
What?
Or more specifically, it, quote, told of 6 beautiful and deadly gems whose origins were only vaguely and fearfully hinted at. And that is the only explanation of their origins that we're going to get here.
Wonderful.
Immediately after this explanation, there is a 5-panel montage that just shows Thanos getting 5 out of 6 of the gems, with Warlock being the only one left that he needs to obtain.
He really just ripped that out of that dude's head, huh?
There is no further build-up or explanation here. They just tell us barely what the gems are, and then say, hey, and now Thanos has them all. Isn't that awful for everybody? With all build-up to this moment unceremoniously montaged at us, you would expect that the rest of this comic is about Thanos tracking down the last gem. He's got to go find Warlock, kill him or something, and then take the thing off of his forehead.
Yeah, rip it out.
But no, Thanos kind of has that one too.
What? How?
If you recall, just a minute ago, I said that the gems did not have their individual names yet. But this was not just a lack of designation. They didn't have their individual domains yet either.
Okay.
At least not officially. The gems are apparently capable of different things. This is just never really relevant and is only specifically detailed in one case. Comics that feature the Soul Gems do this amazing power, where they do mention on a few occasions that the gems each have their own unique powers. They just never actually say what those are, which makes it really difficult to track.
Of course.
The only gem whose specific powers are ever defined is Adam Warlock's, as it apparently has the power to steal souls. This, for whatever reason, is not something that Thanos wants to mess with. He draws the line at taking this gem. So he goes on a whole tangent plan in order to copy it.
What?
In an arc shortly before this, Thanos had seemingly teamed up with Adam Warlock to help him take down a villain, but was apparently working for his own ends this entire time.
So it's that usual thing from a villain.
Means allowed Thanos to siphon off energy from Warlock's soul gem to such an extent that Thanos basically could use the soul gem however he wanted, despite not having it.
So he could just reconstruct it.
He just kind of does have all 6 of them already. For practical purposes, he has every stone in hand.
Oh, this is just so they couldn't kill him.
Right after the montage, everything I've been talking about for the last couple of minutes takes place over the course of a single page.
What?
It's divided very nicely into 3 sections. The first is
the
bare bones origin of the gems. Second is the montage of Thanos just picking them all up. And then the third is explaining how he also kind of has the last one by technicality.
They were really rolling into this at fucking light speed, huh? I'm like, what? Also, for some reason, none of my buttons are working to express different emotions for some reason today. But that's neither here nor there. But anyway, yeah, wow. Just speed running through this arc already so we can get to the climax. Were a lot of old comics like this? Just like, I mean, this feels like they were just rushing through the setup just so we can get to the part where Thanos starts killing everyone with the soul gems. Or the Infinity Gems. I will say, I think I first learned about the Infinity Stones from, funny enough, Superhero Squad. I don't think any of you would remember that, but it was a fun little show that existed for a time. And yeah, so I I don't know why a writer would do this. Like, the panels look fine, the art is fine, but doing this all in a single page just feels wrong on a number of levels, and I don't even know what to say about it. Like, what? Why? What is the reason? Like I said, the art looks fine. Thanos in his usual garb looks incredibly silly, but then again, he's a comic book character, so he's allowed to look silly, but they don't even, like, I thought this bit right here, that's showing that Adam Warlock, you know, like, working with Thanos to do his video, I thought that was going to be, like, part of an Adam Warlock comic that happened earlier on. No, it's just on the page there, which is actually insane to me. Like, holy hell. I know I've said they're speedrunning this before, but god damn.
And since we no longer have to worry about pesky little
His
things
name is
like
Thanos.
build up or tension or narrative, we can get right to the big villain plan. Thanos has all the gems,
so he's gonna snap his
assemble
fingers?
them together and wield the almighty power of one gem.
What?
This one is a lot bigger than the others.
What is this, the Master...
Yeah, we don't...
What is this, the Master Emerald and the Chaos Emeralds? What the hell is going on here? I'm sorry, I had to make that Sonic reference. I feel like my Sonic friends would be angry at me if I at least didn't make that once.
Have the Infinity Gauntlet yet.
I know
That
barely
wouldn't
anything
appear
about
till the
Sonic.
90s. In the original Soul Gems era, getting all 6 of them would allow you to fuse the gems into one more powerful one that is also,
Okay.
for some reason, comically
Green.
large. This gem is bigger than Thanos is.
It looks funny.
Thanos dubs this gigantic
Need one
thing
more
the Star
hard
Gem,
gem.
making it the first of the gems to have its own unique name.
A
though
Star
this is likely
Gem.
less because of what it can do and more just because of what Thanos wants to use it for.
And that is
Remember
to
how
blow
I
up a
said
star?
we would be getting back to Thanos' evil motivations? Yeah, time to finally do that. If you're a comics fan, you know exactly where this is going. But
Yeah.
for people who are more familiar with the movies, the MCU version of Thanos has motivations that are a little bit more down to earth.
Yeah.
They're still wild, of course,
Oh, yeah.
but he has the whole
Completely
kill
insane.
half of life so that resources will last for longer thing. This is a bit more reasonable than his motivation in the comics, if nothing
Yeah.
else. The real, actual villain setup for Thanos in the original comics is that he met the physical incarnation of death and fell in love with her.
Yep.
So now, his plot with the Star Gem is extinguishing all life everywhere in the universe by wielding his cosmic weapon to make every star go supernova
Oh.
at once.
Oh,
I do
I
get why they
see.
changed it for the movies. This original stuff might be
Yeah.
a little too classic comic book cheesy for general audiences,
Oh,
but that is
definitely.
what we are working with here. Thanos has a crush on Death, so he wants to impress her by
Like,
blowing up everything so that he can, forget
Yeah.
my crude language here, but I think it's warranted,
Propose to her.
bone them bones. He does not succeed in this, of course.
Of course
Thanos
not.
is brought down by the Avengers for the second time because Iron Man just shoots the Star Gem with his repulsor rays
Oh.
and it breaks.
Okay.
Continuing the pattern of this comic being very unceremonious in everything that
Yeah,
happens.
my gem,
And
you
that's
destroyed
the
my
end
Star
of
Gem.
the first Soul Gem arc.
Perverted.
Before we move on to the second arc, I need to give you a little bit of publication information that will be relevant for the remainder of this video.
Okay.
This comic was written by a guy named Jim Starlin. Jim also
I feel
created
like
the
I've heard
character
of him
Adam
before.
Warlock, created the character of Thanos, and by extension, created the Soul Gems in their original concept.
Okay.
Pretty much everything around the Infinity Stones was originated by Starlin. The destruction of the Star Gem seemed to be Starlin's original plan for the end of the Soul Gems as a concept. When the
Okay.
Star Gem destroyed, everyone thought that the individual gems that made it up were also destroyed,
Yeah.
save for Adam Warlock's because it was never really part of the Star Gem anyway. But a decade later, in 1986,
Warlock kept his gem, wouldn't have mattered too much here. He died shortly okay. Then he gets revived. The soul gem is stolen in his absence. Why didn't you just take it from him if you were gonna make it? Comics are weird at times where they make silly decisions for no reason. I don't even know if Adam Warlock was that big of a character. I mean, like, with audiences. He might have been a much more important character. I mean, hell, we didn't even get him in Guardians of the Galaxy, which we thought we were going to, but that actually never happened. Which I'm a little sad about, because I kind of wanted to see what the MCU Adam Warlock would at least look like. Like, from all I know about Adam Warlock is he doesn't seem like a bad guy. he was just made by some really bad people. Because he's supposed to be like the ultimate being or something. I don't know if that's exactly right, but that's all I know about Adam Warlock, to be honest. That he was made to be like the perfect being, and he kind of flies around and goes with the Guardians of the Galaxy. Other than that, oh, and he fights Thanos every once in a while. That's pretty much all I know about him. If you guys want to give me a bit of a lore dump about Adam Warlock, you can in the comments. But yeah, I still can't believe they're just like, yeah, and then he dies, and then the gem just gets stolen in his absence. Which, I will say this, just having them all get destroyed is, I guess, a bookend way for the comics to end. I thought they would be more powerful, given that they are 6 stones with immense power, that they would be harder to destroy.
7, Marvel decided to take another swing at the gems. This
Take
would take
another
place
swing at
in a
Silver
Silver
Surfer.
Surfer comic, written not by Jim Starlin, but by Steve Englehart. Though Starlin would take over the series a couple issues later, so he is still involved.
Alright.
This comic would connect the Infinity Stones to another element of Marvel's cosmic hierarchy,
And that
one
is?
I've already covered on this channel, in fact,
And that
the
is?
Elders of the Universe.
Ah, them.
These impossibly ancient beings would
Yeah.
collect the soul gems for their own purposes.
Oh,
How did they do that when they were destroyed? Well, the gems just actually weren't destroyed. They were instead scattered to the far reaches of the
Are
universe.
they the Dragon
Or
Balls?
something. I don't know. The comic
What?
doesn't really explain it, but the gems are still around, apparently. The gems themselves aren't incredibly important to this arc. They are kind of just... Well, they're kind of just what the gems often end up being, which is a set of artifacts that other villains use
They're
to power
MacGuffins.
whatever schemes they
Yeah,
have
they're
going on.
MacGuffins.
In the case of this storyline, the Elders of the Universe have a very
to try and
complicated
kill
scheme to
Galactus.
achieve true
Yeah, this one.
immortality. Part of that involves killing Galactus,
Which is
and
still
killing
insane.
Galactus is a very difficult task, so they
Of
need
course.
the power of the combined soul gems to pull it off. This might seem like a fine goal at first, given how
They're doing
dangerous
it out of
Galactus
pettiness,
is,
though.
but it turns out his existence is very important to the fundamental fabric
Oh,
of
yeah.
reality, so the
He is like
Elders
a
need to
core
be
element.
stopped. They are foiled by the Silver Surfer and a bunch of
Oh,
other
this is
heroes,
where we get their
but
names.
they do manage to keep their hands on most of the soul gems, with the final one being given to a cosmic entity of balance named the In-Betweener, so that
Oh,
the set
yeah, the
cannot be
In-Betweener.
reunited. Thus, the second Soul Gem arc is complete, and 2 years pass. Then,
Okay.
in 1990, once again, Jim Starlin decides to take a third
He
swing at writing something with the gems.
Okay,
And
he just
this,
really likes
finally,
this plot
is
point,
the
huh?
arc where they start to resemble the artifacts that we know them as today.
That we know and
In a
kind
storyline
of
that
like.
took place a little bit before this, Thanos had been killed by Adam Warlock.
Oh,
but unsurprisingly,
okay.
given his connection with his cosmic crush, death was not the end for him. He ended
Ah.
up in the realm of Mistress Death, and she chose him more actively,
Oh,
returning him
what?
to life with enhanced powers and tasking him directly with exterminating half, yes, it's finally half this time, of
Okay.
all life in the universe as a tribute to her. This
Oh,
leads to
okay.
Jim
Two notes for clarifying. The first is the storyline, Cosmic Cube storyline. Starling did that too. There's also some big stuff about Death wanting this extermination balance of resources, but that's not why Death. It feels like in order for the MCU to work, like they just read a bunch of old comics and took the bits and pieces that they liked in order to make it. Like that's not a bad way to write, but does kind of feel like that. It's not his mission, but he wants Death. Yeah. So I didn't know at any point that she would actually want him to do this. It feels kind of counterproductive for Death to want half of all the universe to die, but since it was by his cosmic crush, I guess he was gonna do it. I mean, Thanos is down bad for Death, which she doesn't seem to really care about him as far as I know in any of the modern comics. She seems more into Deadpool, which is kind of funny. I don't actually know why she likes Deadpool. You guys can tell me if you want, but I have no idea. I have actually no idea. Also, I know that Thanos cursed him with immortality so he could never be with Death, and then took it away because he found him really annoying and just hated him.
Starlin's third take at a Thanos acquires magical artifacts to kill everyone storyline.
He's done this quite a
This
bit
time
now.
around, he's not going for something new, he's going for the gems again.
Okay.
It is kind of hilarious how much this arc actively acknowledges the repeated plot points, at least. When Thanos
yeah.
tells Mistress Death that he's going to go seek the soul gems, her little butler henchman guy turns and goes, didn't you already do that and
Yeah.
fail? To which Thanos
I
replies,
failed, Gorilla.
yeah, but I was doing it wrong, and this time I'm gonna do it right.
Okay.
Apparently, in his second round of research on the Soul Gems, Thanos stumbled upon a location called the Infinity Well, and by gazing into it, he gained knowledge of what the gems actually are. So now he knows how to use them correctly, I guess, and so we're finally going to get
We're
more
doing big
information.
concepts here.
Cue a 2-issue miniseries
Thanos
called
Quest.
Thanos Quest. I have mixed feelings on Thanos Quest. I'll be polite and say it that way. On the negative side, the plotline. Thanos Quest is, to put it simply, just a long, non-stop sequence of Thanos winning fights. There's not really a plot here.
He's not really
Thanos
doing anything.
recovering all of the soul gems from their wielders by being the coolest, strongest, smartest guy
So he's
there
just
ever
beating
was.
up everyone and
To
taking
apply
their...
some modern terms retroactively to this 90s comic, Thanos Quest consists almost entirely of hype moments and aura. He just wins and wins and wins and wins.
Those
and
can
it
be
is
really
annoying
boring.
to read.
Yeah.
But on the good side of Thanos Quest, it does have some pretty decent world building.
Okay.
These 2 issues effectively fill in almost every lore gap that the original Bare Bones Soul Gem origin had.
Okay,
For one,
tell me.
it changes their name. After Thanos Quest, the Soul Gems would be renamed to the Infinity Gems. The change from gems to
there we
stones
go.
would happen later. We'll cover that when we get to it. Secondly, the gems now have their distinct domains. The unique powers of the gems that were never explained are finally split into the categories we know today: mind, reality, power, space, time, and soul. Thanos even makes an offhand comment about how only Warlock's jewel was really worthy of the title Soul Gem in the first place. So once again, while we are kind of repeating the same plot points in these storylines, at least they are being self-aware about it. Finally, for Thanos Quest lore, the Infinity Gems now have an origin. Still a fairly quick one, but a lot more than we had previously.
Yeah.
Since it is fairly short, I'll just read it right off the page. Thanos describes the origin of the stones this way.
Alright, here we go.
The gems come from before all recorded time. They were once a single unit, a lone entity. They were a sentient being of limitless power.
Really?
At the time, this being was the only living thing that existed within any and all realities.
It comes from the
It was all that
reality
was,
itself,
and
the
all
universe?
that was it. This being was infinity and forever. No one would fault you if you were to call it God. What other name would fit? But I doubt it ever had a name or any use for one.
I mean,
for it was more
that
alone
makes sense.
than any being has ever been. All that was already part of itself. There was no other in its life. A more desolate existence is beyond imagination. I believe that is why it chose to put an end to itself. But such power does not give up the ghost easily. From its ashes rose all that is currently reality in all its many forms. The core of this being's might was reincarnated in the form of the 6 Infinity Gems. So that is what the Infinity Gems are,
They're
at least
part of
in their
originally
original
the
state.
universe.
They were once a singular, all-encompassing entity that perished, and when it died, parts of its essence were split up and condensed into these jewels.
Yeah.
Amazingly, given that this is a comic from 1990,
actually
this origin
fits
is
a lot.
still canon in the modern day, at least more or less. We'll get into the specifics of this later in the video, but the idea that the Infinity Stones are shattered remnants of an ancient god being is still the case. So
yeah, I actually watched a video on that, and that's, even to this day, that makes sense, given what lore I know on how the second universe ended, and the Celestials were kind of helping with that, and it, well, after a battle with the Celestials in the first universe, it ended, and then the second one decided it wanted to die because death was invented, and then it ended. So, wait, could that mean that well, no, then wouldn't the first version just be the only one powerful enough to have the Infinity Stones made? Or is there, like, separate entities that, from all the different universes where the Infinity... What I'm asking here is, are there, like, separate groups of these things with less powerful versions of them from, like, the different universes, given that we're on the 7th? I'm surprised I've retained all this knowledge. I'm just gonna say this much from all the lore breakdowns our superhero has given us for, well, a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I actually do want to know if you guys can tell me in the comments. Alright, let's go on.
To recap the Thanos Quest world building very quickly, the Infinity Gems are now called the Infinity Gems. They have their distinct power sets, and we know at least a rough approximation of where they came from. They are starting to resemble their modern versions more and more, and this makes a lot of sense because the next storyline they appear in is the most iconic one.
And that is?
Yes, we have now finally reached
the Infinity War.
Gauntlet. And I mean that phrase
Infinity
in
Gauntlet.
2 ways, actually. For one, this is where the Infinity Gauntlet, the literal item, first makes its appearance, but also, Infinity Gauntlet is the name of the event. This is one of the main comics that the Infinity War movie adapted. This is where the snap happens, for example. But the classic comic is not called Infinity War. That's a different storyline. This one is Gauntlet.
But Infinity War just sounded better, so they took it.
I actually don't need to go into too much detail on this event because the general plot structure is similar enough to the movie. The comic does have a lot more to it, and the ending, and really the second half in general, gets a lot more comic book cheesy than the movies ever did, but in the beginning especially, the plot beats are what we're familiar with. There are some different characters in this, and their roles are shuffled around just because the comics had a lot more people to work with. Silver Surfer is the one who comes to Earth to warn the Avengers instead of Hulk, things like that. But one of the first events in the arc is Thanos getting all the gems, doing the iconic snap, and wiping out half of all life in the universe. Infinity Gauntlet does really continue the pattern that Jim Starlin loves to do of hyping Thanos up as the coolest and strongest and smartest guy anywhere in the universe.
Dear God, he likes him a little too much.
In which, in another attempt to impress Death, he only uses one of the gems to defeat all the heroes, despite having all of them. It is literally just the anime 1% of my power joke. And of course, he still wins and then just goes back to using all the gems. All of that was just because he could.
I mean,
Death is not.
It's like, I will only use one of the most powerful items in the universe to defeat all these heroes. I'm like, that means nothing, dude. That's like saying, yes, I will use Thor's hammer to beat up all these normal people. I will use only Thor's hammer. I'm like, I don't know how that's a flex, my guy. The scene is even better, the first realizing that actually literally says he's restrained given the heroes only one. Oh my God, he actually did that. Also, on that note, I do also want to say this. So they really did just like rip the storyline from the comics and just place it in the Infinity War, movies. Huh. Well, it happens from time to time, I guess. I mean, it makes sense. If you're gonna pull from the comics, you might as well pull from the good ones. Then again, I've actually never read this one, so I wouldn't know if it's any good. You guys can tell me down below.
Not impressed by his actions, though, and she actually ends up turning on Thanos as the storyline progresses. This angers him to no end, and it is this rage and arrogance that leads to his downfall. Since he can't have his cosmic skeleton wife, Thanos decides, screw it, he's going to become a cosmic entity himself. And as all the other cosmic entities assemble in an attempt to stop him, he uses the gauntlet to ascend himself to celestial godhood. Like
that's not good.
This is where things get a lot more comic book cheesy than the movies ever did. So now Thanos is literally the strongest and coolest and smartest guy in all of reality. He has surpassed everyone.
So
but
how do we
there is a
stop
catch
him?
to this. When he ascended himself to cosmic existence, this meant that he abandoned his physical body. The physical body that the Infinity Gauntlet was still on. He didn't take the gems with him. With
he's
the
stupid.
most powerful artifact in the universe just now kind of sitting there. It was picked up by Nebula. We all know Nebula's general deal. She was a daughter, sometimes represented as granddaughter of Thanos, who ended up betraying him, and so he was torturing her at the base of his throne with the gauntlet for his own amusement. She's not really a good guy here. She does not join the heroes, but she has a personal vendetta against Thanos because of the torture. And so she immediately goes for the gems the second she has the opportunity.
I mean, I would too.
Using the
to
gems,
stop him.
she restores herself and then rewinds time by 24 hours to before Thanos messed everything up.
Makes
she
sense.
keeps the gauntlet in this reset, but unfortunately, Nebula doesn't really know how it works. She has a general idea, enough to do a lot of fancy things, but she does not have any cosmic or magical experience, so she's not as good with the gems as some other people on the battlefield. Warlock is present as well, and he's been wielding the soul gem since Well, since they were all soul gems. Now, there's going to be a whole section in the middle of this video about the powers of the Infinity Stones and how they all specifically work. But importantly for this arc, one of the main abilities of the soul gem is that it contains a sort of micro-universe called Soul World. You can guess this by the name very easily, but Soul World is where souls go when they are trapped by the gem. Warlock has a very deep connection to this place, so he is able to pull himself and a bunch of other heroes into Soul World to regroup, and then use his connection to the stones from there to basically disable Nebula's control over them.
Good.
Thus, at the end of the crossover, Adam Warlock claims the completed Infinity Gauntlet for himself, gaining infinite power, but promising that he is not going to use it for evil. He is going to be a better supreme being than Thanos ever was, and he does get to be that
not
for
a high bar.
Like 2 issues.
Oh, damn.
Look, the Infinity Gems might be called the Infinity Gems, but this is comic book cosmology we're talking about. Infinity is a floating concept, and there is always a bigger
This
fish.
is going to be short.
In an immediate follow-up comic to
He
Infinity
gets beaten by
Gauntlet,
the big bad.
Warlock is judged by the stronger cosmic entity known as
the Living Tribunal.
And the Tribunal's ruling is that Adam is not worthy of wielding all of the gems at once. If you're wondering why the Tribunal didn't just do this to solve the Thanos problem, actually he did rule on Thanos as well, but ruled in Thanos' favor. This is really weird. I'm not entirely sure why this is the case. Genuinely, my best answer is that this was a Jim Starlin book, and when Jim Starlin writes Thanos, he has to be the best in every single situation.
Oh my god, why are you like this about Thanos of all people?
The Tribunal didn't rule against Warlock because it deeply distrusted him. It's more that the gems together were deemed to be too dangerous for any singular entity to wield, except for Thanos, I guess.
I guess.
This leads to Warlock getting to choose the Guardians of the Gems and the creation of a team known as the Infinity Watch. This is the status quo that the Infinity Gems would have for quite some time.
Interesting.
Warlock and the Infinity Watch was a decently long-running comic,
Really?
and the tradition of teams guarding the stones being called the Infinity Watch has continued into the modern day. The original roster of the Infinity Watch was as follows. Warlock himself kept the Soul Gem.
Of course.
The Space Gem was given to his best friend, Pip the Troll. Gamora was given the Time Gem. Moondragon was given the Mind Gem. And Drax was given the Power Gem.
That's Drax? Oh my god, he ate the moon. Oh my god, he ate the power gem. Because he thought it was a jelly bean. They made him dumber. Like, having him not be able to understand, you know, like, metaphors and whatnot, that's fine. But he just straight up ate one of the most powerful gems. And I don't even know what to say about that. This is, wow. Okay. But yeah, I didn't even recognize Gamora or Drax. Their designs have changed so much over the years. Also, he, I don't know why to me, but he kind of looks like a minion Brainiac right now, at least to me. I just thought I would add that on there, but yeah. I just can't believe this panel.
At which point he promptly mistook it for a jelly bean and ate the thing.
Oh my god.
I might as well bring this up now.
So
as Drax eating
what
one
happened?
of the gems is a very fitting time to do it. You might have noticed a change between these and the MCU versions of the gem if you're not familiar with the comics iterations. In the comics, the gems can be wielded by anybody. They're not going to blow up your arm or kill you or whatever if a regular mortal tries to get their hands on one of them.
Okay.
As long as you have the mental capacity to use a gem, you can hold it.
Alright.
Or eat it, whatever.
I guess it doesn't matter who you are. You can use the gems however you want, as long as, well, you know how to use them, I guess. I'm not sure how I feel about either one. I feel like they work in their own continuity, actually.
Have noticed, when I was talking about the Infinity Watch there, I only mentioned 5 people. The reality gem was kept elsewhere. Warlock gave 5 out of the 6 gems to people who he thought would protect the universe and use them wisely. That was, after all, what he wanted to do with the gems himself in the first place.
Of course.
But as an extra security measure, he took one of them and gave it to someone who was distinctly not on the team, just in case things went bad and the Infinity Watch members decided to use the gems for evil. So who was his sacred wielder?
Is it going to be Thanos?
Gem? It was Thanos.
Oh my god, why was I right? Why was I right about this? I didn't want to be right. I thought, who would be the dumbest person to give the reality gem to? Thanos. I'm like, that's the only person I thought that would be the... Why? Why would you give Thanos the reality gem? Oh my god.
Thanos survived Infinity Gauntlet, and Warlock just willingly gave him one
Why?
of the gems back. Why? Because this was also a Jim Starlin book, and God forbid he writes a space comic where Thanos doesn't get to do something cool.
Why? He needs to stop like gloating about Thanos. Like, I get it's his favorite character to write, it's his favorite villain to do things, but you need to stop. You need to stop. Like, he didn't even need to be here. You could have just had him hide it away. Like, what? Oh my god.
Though, jokes aside, I will give a little bit of credit. There is a half-decent reason why Thanos was picked.
And
Adam Warlock's logic was that if anyone else tried to gather all the stones for themselves again, it would piss Thanos off so much that he would do everything in his power to keep that from happening.
I guess.
And yeah, that does track. Weaponizing the arrogance of Thanos is something that you can count on.
I guess so, yeah.
Of course, the Infinity Watch would not hold the gems safely forever, and
yeah,
it would soon be joined under the banner of evil.
Oh, there's Black Knight.
The
I always loved his costume design because Black Knight has a lot of cool designs.
War comic. Though despite the name, this one has really no plot similarities to the MCU movie. I guess Marvel Studios just took this name because it rolled off the tongue better.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to go through this one even quicker than I went through Gauntlet. This time, the villain is the evil nemesis doppelganger of Adam Warlock, known as Magus.
Never heard of him.
He tricks the cosmic entities into allowing the stones to be rejoined again,
and
then he tries to use them to do bad stuff, but is defeated by the heroes, and mostly Adam Warlock, who does a cool thing with the soul gem, traps Magus in it, and everyone is fine.
Okay.
Am I skimming over a pretty iconic crossover very quickly there? Yes, I am, but I'm doing it to prove a point.
And that
being that in this early era, Infinity Gem storylines were near identical at their core. The Infinity Gems are independently located at dangerous locations or by powerful people.
And then they
Someone
get gathered.
wants to get them all together in order to do something big and evil. They achieve this goal, combine the gems in one way or another, and then do something evil with it. This
and
then
they get
gets
stopped
undone by the actions of heroes, almost always resulting in Adam Warlock being the guy who saves the day.
Why always Adam Warlock?
And it's also always written by Jim Starlin.
It was written by him again? Oh my god, does he just have he seems to have three loves, which is Adam Warlock, the Infinity Stones, and Thanos. Like, with Thanos being at the top, obviously. Like, dear god, man. He really just wants to keep writing. I don't know if it's the editors telling him to keep writing this, or him just loving to keep writing this, but yeah.
By the mid-90s, he had done this same storyline with minor variations 4 separate times.
4?
The gems would finally be written by someone other than Starlin in 1995. And now, finally, I get to do
I actually did, I had the part about the color inconsistency later in the production, forgot to change this line. Oh, that's on brand.
Superhero classic that I haven't done yet in this video.
And that
Change the music to something comedic and go on a weird tangent.
Oh dear.
In 1986, a new comic book publisher named Malibu Comics entered the scene.
Okay.
Despite some similarities to Marvel in terms of their logo's general vibe, they had nothing to do with either of the big two publishers. They were their own independent thing.
Alright.
Malibu was actually pretty
Slight
successful.
correction, Malibu did not do Men in Black first, another publisher. Oh, so they made well, they made some Men in Black comics. They're not the first people.
They were the original publisher of the Men in Black comics that would later be adapted into the very popular movie franchise, and they also had a superhero universe.
I didn't know they were a comic
called the Ultraverse. By the mid-90s, Malibu was doing well.
Oh my god, they were the guys who had Ultra Force? I actually do want to read this comic because it is interesting. I know partly where he's going with this in that surprisingly, I have information about the Ultra Force, which is that some of these have cool backstories, and they have their own show with Prime, Prototype, Hard Case. I don't remember this crazy lady who is barely wearing anything, but yeah. I always thought they were kind of cool. I didn't know Malibu was the comic studio that they originally come from, but I know that they were bought out by Marvel, and most of these characters never come back, unfortunately.
To catch notice of the big guys, and they were acquired in 1994
and there's Topaz
by
and Ghoul.
Marvel. There are mixed reports as to why exactly this acquisition happened.
Yeah.
The official reason from Marvel is that Malibu had a very good studio for comic book coloring that Marvel wanted to make use of.
Oh.
However, it is highly speculated that the main reason Marvel bought Malibu is just so that DC Comics couldn't have it. Whatever is real, I'm not sure. It's probably a mix of the two. Whatever the real reason was.
I'm just sad because these characters never get used again, and... Well, as far as I know, none of them get used again. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but just buying them for the coloring or whatnot, or just because someone else can't have them, and then not really using their characters kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, at least with DC, they use a lot of the characters they gain the rights to. Like, Captain Marvel was originally not, or well, he's known by Shazam now, originally not a DC comic.
This left Marvel with a choice to make as to how to handle Malibu's original superhero universe, and the call that they made was to fuse it with their own, but not directly. Rather, the Ultraverse was established as a different universe within Marvel's multiverse.
Okay.
Completely different than all of the other universes, of course, with entirely original characters, but still connected across that multiversal pathway. Wanting to capitalize on these new opportunities, Marvel quickly did a crossover featuring characters from both
that makes
worlds.
sense.
And the Infinity Gems were a core piece of this.
Oh.
In the beginning of this event, a vampire villain from the Ultraverse named Rune goes to the main Marvel universe, manages to grab up all the gems, and then takes them back to his home reality where he disperses them.
What?
This sets up what could be an interesting storyline, Infinity Gems in a new universe that didn't have them before. But oddly enough, in the Ultraverse, they find a seventh gem.
What?
This new one is referred to as the Ego Gem, and keeping up the pattern of Marvel not knowing what colors these things are,
what the hell?
It is drawn as either gold, white, or icy blue.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's also alive.
What?
So if you think back to a bit earlier in the video,
here we go.
you will
All right,
recall
I see
that
where
I
this is
said
going.
the origin of the Infinity Gems as originally presented was that they were the shattered fragment remains of an original supreme godlike being. What the Ultraverse crossover established was that the Ego Gem is where the sentience and consciousness of that being went.
Okay,
Why
interesting.
did 6 of the gems end up in one reality and then only one of them end up in a different place where it had apparently been all along? I don't know, don't worry about it. But as
that's
this
a good,
comic apparently
way to
confirms,
view it.
the full set of Infinity Gems is 7, and now that all 7 of them are in the same reality, they can be reunited as an actually complete set. I guess the
to a
first
person?
time. The fusion of these gems results in that supreme entity being restored to life, revealing her true form as the cosmic goddess named Nemesis. Nemesis is then kind of just defeated by the Avengers and Ultra Force, which, as I'm sure you can guess without me telling you, is the main superhero team of the Ultraverse.
Yeah, that sounds
How did 2 superhero teams manage to defeat a cosmic primal super entity that existed literally before everything else? She was weakened because something in the Ultraverse had caused the other Infinity Stones to gain their own independent sentiences, and so she was kind of split psychically. I don't know, it weakened her in some way.
Okay, that's a little weird, but we're like 5 for 5 now with the same sort of plotline. A bunch of people gather they're kept away. Someone gathers the Infinity Stones. This time the Infinity Stones with one of them being sentient to combat them, and then they try to do something bad, and then they get beaten up by the heroes. It really is just a rerun of the same plotline over and over again. Like, I don't want to be mean about it, but it really doesn't seem like they're doing anything new or different with it. Like, other than there being a 7th gem and it being alive and then coming to form a person that then gets beat up by the superheroes, I'm not really seeing anything that's going different here. I'll be completely honest with all of you. I am just, like, why do people keep writing the same stories over and over again with slight differences? Like, don't get me wrong, it's cool to see the Ultra Force. I don't know much about them. I know they exist, and I know they probably don't exist in Marvel's universes anymore, but it's just, well, you know what I mean.
The reason that I'm just kind of throwing this at you without a lot of drama is that the Ultraverse Avengers crossover wasn't good. This comic was not popular at all and has not
okay.
mattered going since. Nemesis herself has only appeared in 6 comics ever. They were all directly part of this, and the last one was in 1996, where she has not been addressed since. Despite the Nemesis idea being extremely underwhelming, the notion that the Infinity Stones are fragments of a supreme god is still the case. It's just a different supreme god. Years down the line, Marvel's cosmic savior, Al Ewing, will come back and rework this a little bit. I will, again, cover that once we get to it in the timeline. Getting back in actual chronology, you might be wondering how the Infinity Gems returned to the main universe after the whole Ultraverse thing didn't land where Marvel wanted it to. And the answer is that they did.
They just were.
I don't have any information for you. Their next appearance would be in 2004, in a comic written by Jim Starlin. So take a wild guess as to who's getting their hands on the gems this time.
Maybe I should start a drinking game where every time he says Jim Starling, I have to take a drink. I don't drink alcohol, but it feels like I'm being driven to with how much this man loves to write the Infinity Gem stories. Like my guy, I know you had one thing you were known for, but you don't have to make it the only thing you're known for, my dude.
Time around. Well, haha, I got you. It was actually Galactus this time. Galactus was the one trying to collect the gems for his own evil purposes.
Oh my god.
And he was opposed by a team-up of Thanos and Adam Warlock.
God damn it. Like, you're gone, man. What do I even say to this? I know I'm stopping a lot here, but it's just I am exacerbated by this craziness here. Like, why does he always bring in Thanos for every single problem and Adam Warlock? He has, like I said before, he has 3 loves: Adam Warlock, Thanos, and the Infinity Stones. It's just, I don't know. Is he the one that created Thanos? I have no idea, but goddamn does he love the man.
There it is! Galactus is defeated. The gems are scattered throughout the universe. Adam Warlock continues to keep the Soul Gem. This is what happens every single time. But thank the one above all, we are finally starting to get to a point where the Infinity Gems are becoming something different.
Okay.
This is the time where we enter the era of the Illuminati, another concept that's been in the MCU, but in a completely different way. The Illuminati in the comics was formed by Tony Stark, and while the group consists mostly of superheroes, they are not a superhero team by any means. They do exist to protect the Earth, but in a sense that is far more utilitarian and controlling.
Yeah,
the
that's why they're called the
originally
Illuminati.
consisted of Tony himself, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Charles Xavier, Black Bolt, and Namor.
Why
all
Namor?
chosen because they are particularly powerful, intelligent, and influential.
I would put that pin in about Namor being intelligent, do the dumb things that he's done, and his constant lust for Sue Richards. I would not consider him intelligent. I'm just gonna put it there. Anyway, we'll continue on. But yeah, the Illuminati are not known for being the best people.
Illuminati was, for better and for worse, very proactive in how they handled things, and so the powerful Infinity Gems were a point of interest for them. At one point early in the group's history, they did manage to collect the entire set, but not to use the gems for their own ends.
Okay.
Rather, Mr. Fantastic's hope was that with the power of the gems, they could erase the gems from reality. This didn't work, and so since they couldn't just get rid of these incredibly volatile artifacts, they decided to form a sort of Infinity Watch-like group of their own, and each hold on to one stone for safekeeping.
Makes sense.
Who had which gem doesn't really matter, as this arc was still pretty much in line with the Infinity Gem story structure that everything has used up to this point.
Here we go.
They all have the gems. Somebody steals the gems, in this case the Hood. The heroes have to go stop the guy who stole the gems. But after
who the heck is the Hood? I have no idea who that is. You can tell me in the comments, but yeah. I feel like you should at least put a little bit more effort in how these gems were stolen than this. Like, at least show how they were able to get them from him. I don't know.
The Illuminati recovered the Infinity...
Like make it a bit of a longer arc on someone, how they're stealing them and how they're getting through all the different protections obviously put to keep them from getting the stones. I don't know. I'm just... Yeah.
Gems from the Hood this is where things really start to get interesting.
Okay.
As now we are entering the lead up to the 2015 Secret Wars event.
Oh,
I
Secret
talk about
Wars?
Secret Wars a lot.
The Empire also joined the Illuminati around this time, which is why they're in several of these shots. Okay.
On this channel, largely
Secret
because
Wars.
it is very important to Marvel's cosmic storytelling, and that is my area of
I
expertise.
know a little bit about
But yeah,
Secret Wars.
we're going to do it again today. Usually, though, I focus on the aftermath of Secret Wars, and believe me, I am going to be talking about that, but in this video, I get to do something different and focus a little bit more on the lead-up to the event and how it was teased in preceding comics.
Okay.
The primary conflict of...
Fresh on the slip. Beyonders, not builders. They are evil aliens called the Build... Yeah, I actually know about the Builders. And they made two type of, like, super aliens, and they were really bad and hard to fight. Basically, they were having to deal with the Avengers, they were literally destroying planets to destroy Earth for some reason or another. That was the whole thing. Just mistook. I read the whole thing for names I had a really mistake too late. All right, that's fine.
Is that the multiverse is getting destroyed by alien entities called the Builders. One of the main ways they are causing this destruction is by making different universes slam into each other in events called incursions.
That's horrifying.
Which invariably destroys at least one of the universes involved. Incursions were happening for years before Secret Wars actually hit its full release.
Oh.
This was the thing that was kind of looming in the background and setting up events for the eventual main crossover. And the Illuminati were very interested in stopping these incursions from hitting their home reality.
I mean, yeah.
Of course, literally altering the structure of the multiverse to avoid a collision was something that was going to take a lot of power.
Of course,
so
then
the Illuminati decided for the first time to actually put the collected Infinity Gems to use and reassemble the Gauntlet.
I mean,
This leaves a big question still open.
Where's the Gauntlet?
Who's actually going to use the Gauntlet? We've established that in the comics, this will not kill the wearer. The gems only destroy the person using them in the MCU. But still, that is a very large
It's
source
a lot of power
to
give a single man.
But for once, the Illuminati actually made a great choice and decided that none of them were worthy of using the thing. Instead, the Illuminati bestowed the Infinity Gauntlet on Steve Rogers, which...
I mean, that Captain
was
America.
The objectively correct call.
I mean, if there's one man I would trust with the Infinity Gauntlet, it's Steve Rogers. It's Captain America. The man that we always know is a good man. Like, I don't know who else I would ever trust with so much power. Because usually power corrupts a lot. And I'm not sure I would trust the Illuminati with it, but... I don't know. They also probably don't believe in themselves that they would not be corrupted by it. I can see several reasons, like I wouldn't trust Namor, that's for hella sure.
In the moment that an incursion was about to strike Universe 616, Steve Rogers takes the Infinity Gauntlet and physically pushes the other universe away, saving both of the realities in the process, but not without consequences.
What is the consequences?
This is where I get to bring up a new lore point about the Infinity Gems that's going to be extremely important going forward. The gems are universe locked. Well,
yeah, I do know this
they weren't during the Ultraverse thing, but as I said, that's not canon anymore. Marvel completely dropped it. You can too. There is not only one.
This is page from the and it could be referred to as DC, including the Marvel Universe, but often the comic has back. It's just the easiest combination of information that the format. But yeah, as far as I know, the Infinity Stones can only be used in their home universes, which I did learn from the Council. I actually learned this whole thing from a Death Battle video, which was Darkseid versus Thanos, because of course it was Darkseid versus Thanos, where I learned that the Infinity Gauntlet can't be used outside of its home reality. It's a whole thing. I mean, it kind of makes sense, given that each one of them would be representative of that universe that it came from, so why would they work in other universes? At least, I think it makes sense. You guys can obviously disagree with me, you guys can have your own thoughts on things, but yeah.
Of Infinity Gems in the entire Marvel multiverse. Different universes have their own versions of them. We'll be talking about some interesting ones of these later in the video, but for now, the important thing to note is that Infinity Gems only work in their home reality.
Yep.
Take them to a different universe, and they just do nothing. Given this, while Captain America was able to use the completed Gauntlet to push another universe away from the incursion, doing so meant that he had to stretch the power of his gems across a barrier between different realities. This worked enough, but it sent a lot of feedback into the Gauntlet, which led to the gems shattering. In this moment, 5 out of 6 of the most powerful artifacts in the Marvel Universe
were
instantly destroyed. The only one that remained was the Time Gem, and even then, remained is probably not the right word. Rather than being shattered, the feedback caused the Time Gem to simply vanish.
What does this mean if they're destroyed?
Somewhere else in the timeline,
I've never seen this happen.
Doesn't matter as much as you'd think it would. It appears in one more arc very briefly before Secret Wars, but at the end of it, it just kind of vanishes again. So for all intents and purposes, it too was destroyed. This spelled disaster.
It turned out the Time Gem does actually just shatter at the end of the arc. Anyway, so yeah, they all broke. Okay. Wonderful to know at the very least.
For the universe going forward. Because while sure, the day was saved this time, incursions were not a singular event. There were more on the horizon and with increasing frequency. The Illuminati had hoped that the Infinity Gauntlet could work on all of them, and now the Gauntlet was gone.
Yeah, their one failsafe is gone.
Incursions continued, eventually leading to the complete Secret Wars event. But as promised just a minute ago, we don't really have to go into specifics of this. All you need to know for today's topic is that during the events of Secret Wars, the multiverse was entirely destroyed, reduced to a singular planet.
Wait, this Secret Wars. I was thinking of the ones involving the Skrulls, but yeah, I do actually know about this one too, thanks to a lot of the stuff that he taught where technically Doctor Doom remade Earth from a bunch of pieces of other universes. It's a whole thing, yeah.
But then it was restructured at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will break my promise very quickly, but it's for a good reason, or at least a cool reason. Infinity Gems do show up in Secret Wars, but there are actually multiple sets of them. The singular planet that remains for this event is a combination of different realities that have all been amalgamated into...
I don't know why, but just the serious look on Black Panther, like seeing him with dots for eyes, just looks so silly to me. This looks like an emote that I would see. Like, T'Challa looks like... I got pupils now. I'm horrified by what we found. Namor. It just looks silly to me.
To one world. Because of that, there are a bunch of gems, but they are still region locked, meaning that the gems only work in the pieces of the planet that they are native to. This leads to a really cool idea where the heroes have to smuggle an Infinity Gauntlet from one part of the world to another part of the world because that's the only area where it'll function. I like that idea a lot. I just wanted to bring it up. A tiny tangent aside, the destruction and subsequent reformation of the multiverse during Secret Wars is perhaps the biggest event in all of Marvel when it comes to the lore of the Infinity Gems, as this completely restructures their visual appearance.
What?
Let's briefly rewind the timeline here, both in real-world terms and in terms of this video, because I've been showing you things up until this point that you might have picked up on as a little bit odd. In all the pictures I've been showing you, the Infinity Gems look more or less like their more commonly known movie counterparts.
Yeah.
Sure, the comics ones are a lot more rounded and smooth, whereas the movie ones are more jagged and rock-like.
Yeah.
But that aside, they are 6 stones with the 6 colors that we know.
Yeah.
However, the colors don't match. I'll just go ahead and lay this out verbally for people who prefer to listen to my videos instead of watching them. I see you guys, and I got you. In the MCU, the Mind Stone is yellow, the Reality Stone is red, the Power Stone is purple, the Space Stone is blue, the Time Stone is green, and the Soul Stone is orange. But in the pictures I've shown you today, well, after Marvel got their act together and made color consistency a thing, the Mind Gem is red, the Reality Gem is orange, the Power Gem is yellow, the Space Gem is green, the Time Gem is blue, and the Soul Gem is purple. Yes, these are different from the original, but as I said, colors, they were weird. And of course, I'm sure a lot of you have picked up on the fact that I've been calling the Infinity Gems the Infinity Gems, not the Stones.
They haven't still been called the Stones
yet. Specifically chosen cases, and also probably a couple mistakes where I mixed it up. There's no way that I didn't get it wrong at least at one point in this video.
I mean, it happens to us all.
The more commonly known name and colors for this set of artifacts were a creation of the MCU. Now, admittedly, I don't know exactly why they decided to make these changes, but I have some guesses, and my guesses are pretty simple. I assume that the reason the Marvel Cinematic Universe called the Infinity Stones what they did is just that someone decided Infinity Stones and the subsequent Soul Stone, Mind Stone, etc. rolled off the tongue better than Infinity Gems did, which, okay, whatever. I'm not going to be really picky about that.
I'm not
I do
gonna
think
be
Stones
pedantic.
sounds pretty good here. The colors, though, is a more interesting point, and probably has to do with the fact that the movies decided to tie the Infinity Stones to existing
objects. Yeah.
As we've well established, in the comics, the Infinity Gems kind of just were around. Jim Starlin made them up and then had Thanos and Adam Warlock fight over them a billion times. They had a little bit of origin in later comics,
they didn't
but
have that much, but yeah.
Rather than just dump a bunch of new artifacts in as the linchpin of their story arc, the writers at Marvel Studios decided to connect them to
they did
things
something
from
smart,
other
honestly.
movies. The Eye of Agamotto containing the Time Stone, the Tesseract containing the Space Stone, etc.
Yeah.
In the comics, these are completely separate things with no connection
to
the
the Eye of
Infinity
Agamotto
Stones
does not
whatsoever.
have the
Infinity
Stone.
Stones are completely independent, and items like the Eye of Agamotto just exist in their own spheres.
Yeah, it's a magical
but
thing.
Marvel probably made this call just to weave things in a little bit better and make the storyline flow. I remember when this began happening, some comic book purists were very mad about it. Personally, I like the idea. I think this is a better storytelling style than just adding the Infinity Stones in as extras.
I mean, I think it's a lot better than, well, like you said, just adding them in as extras and just having a bunch of other magical objects. It definitely fits a lot better and makes it seem like everything's supposed to connect a lot better. Like the Tesseract being there, the Cosmic Cube, which I think about is that basically the Tesseract? I have no idea. But yeah, and the Guardians of the Galaxy finding the Power Gem, which is purple for some reason, and then the Collector just having the Reality one at the ready, which is still kind of crazy that he just had it hidden. But yeah, overall it seems rather fine, just changing the colors and their placement. It just wanted to create the world to look more connected than it was originally in Marvel, which, I think it's alright. I do kind of wonder what you guys think about it, though. I'm not too big on them changing the colors of the gems. I don't think that's all that important. Color coding and changing happens all the time. Superheroes change their costumes all the time because, I don't know, they're doing a promotion for something. Maybe we'll see superheroes wearing just ads on their clothes because, I don't know, they want to eat Cece's Pizza. I think they're overall fine, but I do kind of like the consistency.
Of course, there is some
I'm not talking
debate
about the pizza.
how much of this was actually planned from the beginning.
Who
Marvel
knows?
Studios really likes to claim that everything they ever do has been planned out for years in advance.
Everyone will.
That's just not true. I'm sorry.
Of course not. Yeah. I know I'm going to go on another long tangent, but when it comes to stuff like this, I believe probably the directors had some of this planned out, but I don't think they had everything ironed out exactly the way they want to do it. That never ever happens even for a writer myself, where I know exactly, when it comes to being a DM, when it comes to being a writer, when it comes to, I bet, being a director, you kind of just pretend yes, this was totally my whole plan the entire time. Listen, they're all lying to you. Listen, when you give us ideas and you go, haha, I bet you're doing this, we're actually taking notes the entire time and adding things to it. For real. We're terrible at hiding it, but some people just fall for it. We definitely didn't have it all together.
To break this to you, but a lot of Marvel Studios decisions are made later in the production process than you would think in terms of connection. Regardless of this, though, whether things like the Tesseract were originally supposed to be the Cosmic Cube and then all that was changed later, the fact remains that the Infinity Stones in the MCU are tied to artifacts.
Yep.
And so the color switch is probably just to make that work better. They swapped around the colors so that the stones would have an aesthetic similarity to the artifacts they were now part of. This left a big discrepancy with the comics, though, and one that was a little bit confusing. Sure, the names could be waved away. In the movies, they were the stones. In the comics, they were the gems. That could have probably been fine, but the colors being shuffled around, that is admittedly confusing, and so Marvel wanted to correct it.
I guess that
Again,
is for
this
some
was
people.
Something that a
I don't
subset
really
of
care.
comic purists were really mad about, but to those people, Shut up. All they did was shuffle around the colors, and that was in a genuine effort to make it easier for new readers who were interested in the movies to get into the comics.
Yeah, good for them, I guess.
No one cares about the colors of the Infinity Stones.
I sure as hell don't.
Anyway, the destruction of the...
I sure as hell don't care about the colors of the Infinity Stones. That feels like such a minute detail to actually care about. But, yeah.
The gems, due to the incursion, was the first part of clearing up this discrepancy. And when the multiverse was reborn in the wake of Secret Wars, the main Marvel Universe had its magical artifacts reborn along with it.
Okay.
Now appearing in colors that matched the MCU and referred to as the Infinity Stones.
So that's how they did it.
45 minutes into the video, I can finally stop having to correct
45?
myself every time I accidentally
Almost 45.
say Infinity Stone instead of Infinity Gem. You have no idea how many clips I've had to re-record because I screwed that up. Thank God the rest of this is going to go so much faster.
I mean, there's so many times and when I'm recording other different kinds of things, like you guys don't know that how many times we full up words while just trying to record stuff for some of this stuff. It's a lot, yeah.
This also makes for a perfect moment to split up the history section of this video, as the Infinity Gems and Infinity Stones are technically different things. We're now done with the history of the Infinity Gems. And
okay, now we can move to the
Infinity Stones and how they work in modern canon. Let's take a pause and actually discuss their powers.
Okay.
The Mind Stone controls the mind. The Reality Stone controls reality. The Power Stone controls power. The Space Stone controls space. The Time Stone controls time. And the Soul Stone controls souls.
Is that it?
That's what they do. You wanted more in this deep dive history? Fine, I guess I'll be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, I kind of need it.
I will individually go over what each of the stones can do. Still quickly, but with more detail than the explanation that I just gave. I'll also order them roughly in order of least complex to most complex, at least in my personal opinions. Somewhat ironically, I think the...
Back up my complexity ranking. It's weird. It's really hard to find images of characters using the Mind Stone specifically. I can find panels for all the others, as you'll see, but there's not a good shot of the Mind. I guess does track as power would be at least visual. I mean, yeah, it's the Mind Stone. I don't expect it to be the most visual thing of all, because you're doing things within... Then again, you could, I guess, do something with it if you're using the powers of the Mind Stone and be glimpsing into someone's mind, but I guess that might be a little too much for some artists.
Least complicated of the Infinity Stones is the Mind Stone. Even though
because
you
you
think
can
that
mind
one would
control.
have a lot of weirdness to it, it kind of just does exactly what you'd expect it to.
You can go in someone's mind.
Users of the Mind Stone gain telepathy and telekinesis. They can pull information from people's heads, read minds, maybe detect locations of people based on reading their thoughts.
I thought it was mind control,
They can also
honestly.
sometimes do more specific things like projecting illusions of what their targets fear. The Mind Stone does a lot of stuff. Me calling it the least complex doesn't mean that it's the least powerful. The thing is that the powers of the Mind Stone just kind of encompass everything that you would consider psychic powers. So we all have an idea, more or less, of how that works. There's nothing else to
what
really
is this
say about
image?
the Mind Stone. It's fairly easy. Moving one step up in the complexity, I'm actually going to put two at a tie, these being the Time and Space Stones. Much like the Mind Stone, these two do exactly what you'd expect.
You can
the
mess with
Space
time.
Stone allows a user to warp the structure of space, and the Time Stone allows a user to warp the flow of time.
Yeah.
There is only one reason why I rank them at higher complexity than the Mind Stone, and that's because of the concept of the space-time continuum. Every time I bring up these two Infinity Stones to somebody, some pedantic guy has to bring up that space and time are connected, and thus these two don't need to be separate, as one could wield all the powers of the other.
Yeah, that's also a thing. Like, people... It's along the same lines of people bringing up whenever there's a video game in space, where... There's like, oh, this sounds some good soundscape in space. And everyone's like, well, it shouldn't actually because, you know, there's no sound in space. And everyone's like, who cares about the realism there? Like the space-time continuum or the condominium, as a friend of mine likes to call it. It's whatever you want to be, man. Like, we're not... Like, sure, it's a bit of sci-fi nonsense, but... It's not like you should expect comic book writers to be completely accurate with their sci-fi BS. So, I mean, yeah, people love to mention that time and space are connected. Like, there was once, I don't remember what video game, where there was a being that represented time and a being that represented space, and someone loves to laugh and go, haha, well, technically these two should be the same being. And I'm like, dude, no one cares, my man. You don't have to get that close into it.
But in the case of the Infinity Stones, no, that's not how it works. You're
Yeah.
wrong. I'm being a little blunt and rude about this, but this specific kind of thing is a big pet peeve of mine, so I'm going to acknowledge it actively. The
That
Infinity
makes
Stones
sense.
are not science. They are
Yeah.
magic. There's a line that you've probably all heard from the first Thor movie. Not
And that is-
originally from that. The characters in that scene are quoting a writer, but we're talking about Marvel, so Thor's where it's most relevant, which goes
Okay.
roughly, magic is just science we don't understand yet. And I hate that quote.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
a
I
lot
don't
of
like it
universes'
either.
magic systems, magic and science are not part of the exact same framework. They might be connected, sure, but the logic and rules of one cannot be exactly applied to the other.
Yeah,
There's a
kind
lot
of.
of ways you can explain this. My favorite, though it's a bit of a simplification, is
Mm-hmm.
to say that science is the world of the objective, whereas magic is the world of the
subjective.
subjective. Again, there's
That
a
works.
lot of layers to this, but this is how Marvel works. Magic and
Mm. I
science...
do like it that science is working within the bounds of reality, and I always think if I were ever make a magic system, my idea is that magic is basically bending the rules of reality. You are bending the very fabric and messing with those rules while science works within those rules. It's basically like technically you're committing a crime against reality by doing the things you do, but yeah, I still think it's cool.
are not the same thing. They have some interplay, but they do not work identically. There's an entire comic which deals with this concept very heavily. It's called Gods by Jonathan Hickman.
Oh,
and
here
I'm
we go
never gonna
again.
Shut up about it ever.
You really
Gods
aren't.
is not the only comic where this concept comes up. There's a really good quote from the magic-using character Mother Righteous to the genetic science-based character Mr. Sinister, where she says that he uses 4 letters, whereas she uses 26. This is a reference to the 4 letters used in DNA structuring and identification, whereas Mother Righteous is saying she has access to all letters of the alphabet because her power is magic, which is based on words. Again, realm of the objective versus subjective. It's
yeah.
a whole thing that I could talk about for hours.
Honestly, I think you have talked about it for hours at this point, my friend. You really have.
Way off topic. Infinity Stones is what I was talking about. All that to say, the time and the space stones are different because they operate on primordial cosmic magic logic, not scientific logic. So they don't have a weird space-time continuum
They do have one connection, but it'll be addressed later. Okay, good to know.
interplay. They are separate things. Next on the list, we have the
The
Power,
Power
Stone.
Stone.
And
How
the best way I
does
can describe the
this
uses
work?
of this one is that the stone is very simple in application, but more complex in concept. The Power Stone technically controls energy more than the other ones do.
Okay, I was
This
wondering
is
about
often used
power
for,
in this.
You know, comic book stuff. Flying, shooting lasers, increasing
Shooting
both
lasers,
physical
usually.
strength and durability. These are commonly what you see the Power Stone doing. But
Yeah.
there are weirder applications for it. And in some descriptions of how the stones work, the Power Stone acts as a battery for the rest of them, ensuring that the other stones can function and providing the energy source for all of the stuff that they are doing.
Okay.
I guess another good way to put it would
No
be
idea
that the
where-
Power Stone is one of, though not the most, open-ended of the Infinity Stones.
I
People
guess
typically
so.
use it for very basic stuff, but if you
Like
have a
shooting
true
lasers.
understanding of how it works, the options expand greatly. Moving on, then, we have the Soul Stone, which
The Soul Stone, where I feel like things are gonna get a little weird because we're messing with matters of the soul, which is, yeah, this is gonna get a little weird, I can already tell.
that a lot of you expected was going to be in the top ranks of complexity.
Yeah.
Though, this is mostly just due to
Alright.
the concept of a soul being extremely nebulous. The primary
okay.
thing that the Soul Stone is used for is absorbing and containing souls within its pocket dimension of Soul World. It can
Soul
rip souls out
World,
of living
huh.
people, it can take them from the deceased so that their souls
Oh.
don't move on to some other world and become
Okay.
unattainable. It has a lot of applications in this general area. This
Good
can
to
be
know.
used offensively or defensively. Obviously,
Oh.
ripping somebody's soul out is a good
Yeah.
way to take them off the
Just
battlefield. But like I just
Shang
said,
Tsung
you
them.
can use it to contain people when they die so that you
Your
can
soul
resurrect
is
them
mine.
later in some other form. The Soul Stone also appears to have
I'm
a
the one I
connection
reached.
to the other stones on a fundamental level. They are all connected, but we've seen the Soul Stone able to influence and control the use of the other stones on multiple occasions. It also
That's
has
crazy.
weirder powers. Adam Warlock has used it for a power called the Karmic Beam before,
What?
and the Soul Stone can also be used to restore people to their natural states after they have
What?
been transformed or otherwise affected.
How?
It is
Why?
more
How?
often than the others kind of just used as a plot device that does whatever it needs to in the moment. If you need something
Okay.
weird to happen with the concepts of life, death, or even morality on occasion, the Soul Stone can probably do that, sure. And that
Alright, then.
brings us to, far and away, the most complex
Reality.
and convoluted of the Infinity Stones, reality.
Also, did Black Cat have the reality stone at one point? She probably did. She steals a lot of things. It wouldn't be crazy that she somehow stole the reality gem. She stole a bunch of crazy stuff from apparently Doctor Strange. And, yeah. Which is, yeah.
This one is weird, and I will fully admit a lot of my explanations of how it works here are going to be my theories, but they are theories pieced together from reading a lot of comics, so I think they're informed enough. At
I
first
guess.
glance, you would expect the Reality Stone to just objectively be the best one out of all of them.
Yeah,
right?
you're messing
Because
with
the
the
goal
fabric of
assembling
reality.
The entire Infinity Gauntlet is to alter reality however you want. And couldn't the Reality Stone just already do that? Well,
Yeah.
the answer is yes and no. The best way that I can describe the Reality Stone to you, as far as I understand it, is by making a comparison to the Time Stone. The Time Stone alters the flow of time.
So
it
you can
does not
alter the
events in time.
the flow of
That
reality.
is an important nuance. Say you had the Time Stone in your hand and you wanted to make World War II have never happened.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't just snap your fingers and instantaneously do that. You could use the stone to send yourself back in time, take out
Yeah.
the Mustache Man, then go back to the present and pray the butterfly effect hasn't destroyed everything, but that is all you could do with that particular stone. With the Reality Stone, though, you could, in theory, snap away World War II. Using that artifact, you could just change reality into one where World War II never happened. And with the way the Reality Stone works, it would avoid paradoxes and the butterfly effect, at least largely.
Okay.
While this has never been explicitly stated in
over there.
canon, and is, I cannot stress this enough, my own interpretation.
Also, who is that wielding it right there? But it definitely feels like the reality stone is a lot stronger than the others then, if it can just kind of do that. Like, it feels like there's a lot less steps you need in order to figure out how to use its power or mess around with it. Like, the bluntest one I feel like is probably the power stone, because it seems the easiest. I don't know. I guess since I have a vague view of what power can itself be, but yeah. Anyway, we're gonna keep going.
Of the powers, I do really like it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The Reality Stone alters events. It changes the world as it stands by changing the way that things got there. This
Okay.
does line up decently well with a recent canon description of how the Reality Stone works, that being that it is connected fundamentally to the multiverse, and basically allows the users to mix and match pieces of different realities and create a new one that suits their interests.
Oh.
In all honesty, I don't really like that explanation. I think it's a weird way to describe
Yeah.
how the stones work.
It's very
and kinda
weird.
doesn't line up with recent canon. However, I think when you take that in the context of it altering past events, it lines up pretty well. Of course, erasing World War II from the timeline was an intentionally extreme example. It
Yeah.
could maybe be done, but it would take a lot of understanding of the stone from the user.
Oh,
Typically, it is
okay.
applied in much more small and down-to-earth contexts. It does have another application, though,
And that
equally
is?
vague, but still connected to this idea of altering events and the fundamental nature of the world as it stands. The Reality Stone can sometimes distort physics. I'm not even going to try to do a detailed
Try a little
explanation.
more detail. Reality stone can also, or the structure of matter, I guess. I feel like that's the most normal thing it should be able to do. It just changes things that are, and it can't say more. It's weird. I do think I remember seeing that in one of the movies, where it just like turned someone into a slinky for a little bit until I think Gamora was forced to leave or be captured by Thanos or something. I don't really remember that bit, but yeah.
Of this power because it's just so incredibly weird and subjective, but it can alter how reality works at a baseline level. This is actually the closest application to how we see it
like I
used
said
in
here.
the MCU, where Thanos like turns Drax into bricks and stuff. It just changes the way things are, which, as I said right at the beginning of this description, does make it seem like it is objectively the strongest of the stones.
Yeah.
But the Reality Stone has a drawback.
And that
the
is?
Reality Stone doesn't make sense. That is intentional. It is how it works. It is altering individual pieces of reality to fit the user's whims, and it typically doesn't really extend its power to things beyond that. If Thanos uses the stone to turn Drax into bricks, he's not turning everything into bricks. That is
just
a
turning
localized
Thanos.
effect.
Yeah.
And the universe doesn't really like those.
Well, I can do
Marvel's
it.
reality is self-healing in a way, and unless you are actively concentrating on the Reality Stone and continuously re-upping your magical effects, the universe will naturally reconstruct and go back to the way it was before you made the shift.
Okay.
This means that changes caused by the Reality Stone are fundamentally temporary. They can be locked in, and the universe can be beaten into submission if you use the other stones in concert with it, but by itself, the Reality Stone is a temporary reality warping device. That's about all I have.
So I've been very upfront with you. Can absolutely find the comics where the other stone doesn't work like described pretty easily. It shifts a lot. The other stones described here are pretty good, but I have limits. I mean, I'm not exactly going to ask you to go through them all and search through every single little thing to find more stuff about the Reality Stone, not conforming to what your thoughts are on it, but yeah, it feels like without the Infinity Gauntlet and the other stones, you can't really shape reality the way it does and kind of, reverts, which I think that also happens in the movie, but I don't remember, honestly, but yeah. It's definitely not something I would mess with. I wouldn't touch any of these stones, honestly. But if you guys had any of the Infinity Stones, which ones would you want? Or which one would you want? Because I sure as hell wouldn't trust myself with that much power. Hell, I'm worried I'll knock over someone's vase, so I just stay away from anyone's precious items. But yeah.
For explanation on the Reality Stone, though, hopefully that makes it make a little bit more sense. But also, let's be real, reality warping in general is a bullshit power, so I think that is probably the best context we're going to get.
Yeah.
Hopefully those little descriptions gave you a bit more context on the basics of how the stones work.
They also have all
because you're
certain
going to need it
shapes.
for the next thing we're talking about. We have covered the powers of the stones individually. Now we need to discuss how they relate to each other. And oh boy, this is really, really good actually.
Okay.
For most of the history of the stones and the gems, the Infinity Gauntlet didn't have a lot of lore as to how the powers of the stones combined with each other. We kind of generally have the idea that the stones each do one thing, and the Gauntlet does all the things.
Yeah.
And so, logically, if you have each stone that does one thing, those just combine into giving you control over the entire universe.
Yeah.
It's basic, and it sounds dumb when you lay it out like that, but that really is all it was. This would shift after Secret Wars, though, not by changing the mechanics of the stones per se, but just by adding extra lore on top of what was already there. This era would expand on an area that had never really been touched on in a lot of detail. Who is best suited to wield the stones? This is a question that's been debated by fans for years, if not decades. What would happen if certain characters got certain stones? It's a fun thing to think about, and the result that most people jump to is matching the powers. This is a logical first conclusion. Hulk is incredibly strong. Wouldn't it be cool if Hulk got the Power Stone? Loki is a trickster, so like in the MCU, what if Loki used the Mind Stone? The Scarlet Witch can warp reality, so naturally she would get the Reality Stone. Giving characters stones that match the things they could already do, theoretically just amplify their abilities to such a high level that they become way, way stronger. On the other hand, though, isn't that a little bit boring? I mean, take the Hulk example. Hulk already punches things very hard. Give him the Power Stone, and he's just going to punch even more than he was already doing. It could be cool to see, but it does feel like we're wasting the potential that the Infinity Stones could provide.
I gotta agree with him here.
And in the modern era, Marvel came up with a system to address that problem very specifically. Enter the Infinity Circuit, a very basic framework which establishes that the connection between the Infinity Stones looks like a circle. Well, okay, in practice, Marvel usually puts a little twist in the middle of it so that it looks like an infinity sign when you put it on the page, but mechanically, it's a circle. The circuit further describes the output potential of the different Infinity Stones when wielded by different users, but in an interesting way. According to this, the potential an Infinity Stone has is not determined by its user's mastery over that domain. Rather, the potential is measured by the mastery over the stone before it. The easiest way to understand how this actually works is to just walk through the circuit step by step, so that's what we're going to do. We will start at the bottom of this diagram here with the Space Stone. Remember, using an Infinity Stone automatically gives the user that stone's abilities.
Yeah.
So if you have the Space Stone, you can teleport, you can warp space, you can change the relative size of things, etc. You don't need extra power supporting that, the stone provides it.
Yeah.
But you could get some extra use out of the stone if you have a deeper understanding of how those systems work. If you have an understanding of movement, if you have an understanding of energy and how things can affect each other, that can enhance your capacity with the Space Stone.
Okay,
In other words,
understanding it better gives you more power.
Is powered by the user's mastery of power. Then let's move on to the next one in the circuit.
This feels a little weird in that it's somehow you have to have an understanding of another different stone in order to have a better understanding of the stones that are given here. This feels a little... it just feels a little weird to me. Like, don't get me wrong, this is their way of trying to tie them together and give them to, like, different people, but it still gives me that weird feeling. Like, this feels a little wrong when you think about it. Understanding of power to the Space Stone, just, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
The Time Stone. I know I went on a whole thing about the Time and Space Stones not being the same, but they do have some rough relation to each other. If you have the Time Stone, you can alter the flow of time automatically. But since space and distance are concepts heavily related to time, if you have an understanding of space, you're going to be able to use the Time Stone more effectively. Moving on from the Time Stone, we reach the Reality Stone, and this lines up very well with how I explained the stone's powers as altering events. The Reality Stone does not allow you to warp time, but it does allow you to warp the way things are. So understanding the flow of events that got you to that point will help you use the Reality Stone to better effect. Through careful application of the Reality Stone, it's easy to gain a good understanding of how the world around you functions. And by understanding the world around you, that can give you a better understanding of yourself.
Kind of getting with the flow with it.
As we move on, the next one in the circuit is the Soul Stone. Once you've mastered the world around you and then mastered yourself, you start to understand how you as an individual relate to other people, and you gain the ability to manipulate them if you so desire, giving you mastery over the fifth stone, Mind. And bringing us around to the sixth and final stone, once you have an understanding of the mind, you have an understanding of the motivations and reasoning behind actions, and how those things can be used to make tangible change. Meaning, you have an understanding of the power. And here's where things get extra cool. While that is the final stone, it is not the final step of the circuit, because it then loops around again. We're now back around at the Space Stone. And since the Space Stone is fueled by understanding of power, if you have the Power Stone, the Space Stone is going to be better, and the cycle begins again. Understanding
so they all just become better.
Manipulate the flow of time. Understanding the flow of time helps you manipulate the way things currently are. Manipulating the world around you.
So if you have two specific ones, they help the other?
Understanding yourself helps you understand others, and understanding others helps you make physical change, which then again helps you warp space. This can just keep going around and around and around forever.
It's supposed to be an infinity
The total output potential of the system increases every single time. Since the Infinity Stones are primordial cosmic magic, they don't have an upper limit to how far they can go. Thus, if you collect all 6 Infinity Stones, which are each powered by the previous, the loop fully completes, resulting in an infinite feedback loop, which is the canon explanation for how the Infinity Gauntlet functions. It's actually kind of hard to understate how much I love the Infinity Circuit as a concept. I genuinely think it is one of the best world-building elements Marvel has ever put to page. It is very simple at its foundation, but that simplicity goes a really long way and has a lot of cool applications.
I can see that.
It doesn't make anything needlessly complex. The 6 Infinity Stones still complete.
They're connected in their own way, I guess.
The universe. That has not changed. There's just a little bit of extra information for those who are interested.
I suppose so, yeah.
In the process of adding that information,
I wouldn't say it's a
fixes
bad
the problem of Infinity Stone redundancy. let's return to the examples I gave you earlier. Sure, we could give Hulk the Power Stone, but he doesn't really need it.
Sure,
Hulk already
yeah,
has a
really
good
doesn't.
understanding of how to move things and break things perfectly well on his own. So, following the Infinity Circuit, why don't we give Hulk the Space Stone and see how his own understanding of power lets him smash space itself?
Is this
We could
actually
let
him
Loki
doing
use
that?
the Mind Stone a little bit more, but again, he doesn't really need it. Loki is already experienced at messing with people's heads. So let's give Loki the Power Stone. That's new, that's interesting, and
Yeah.
who knows what schemes he could manage to pull off with infinite energy resources backed up by his own intelligence.
Would be horrifying.
Scarlet Witch could have the Reality Stone. That's extremely on brand for her, but she warps reality all the time, often without even meaning to. We
Yeah.
could give Wanda Maximoff the Soul Stone, and I mean, that would either go really well or horrendously badly.
Probably
I think it's a coin
horrendously
toss
badly.
which is which, but either way, it would be interesting. The Infinity Circuit encourages creativity with the stones and provides a good canon backing for
Well,
new
at least
and
it encourages
interesting
creativity.
pairings. You don't just need to give people more of what they've already got. Instead, let's give them something new and see what happens when their range of power increases, not just their level in their current capabilities.
Alright.
I'll say it again, I love the Infinity Circuit. It is a masterclass in simple and effective world building, and also how to do power scaling and dynamics correctly, using the powers as a tool for storytelling and interesting comparisons, rather than just a question of who beats who. So
I
after
suppose so.
introducing this very, very cool detail to the Infinity Stones, what has Marvel actually done with it since? Absolutely nothing!
Of course.
Despite being a narrative tool literally designed to help tell new and interesting stories with the Infinity Stones, the Infinity Circuit mattered for like one arc and then just hasn't been relevant at all.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. The kind of things that happens all the time is sometimes another author will literally set up people for the potential to do all kinds of things with other arcs, and they just choose not to. Like, giving them a lot of potential and possible things that they could be happening, and they just say no. As for the Infinity Circuit, once he explained it a bit more, I can kind of get behind it and how it allows a lot more creativity in their usage or different things of giving them to different people. But on the other hand, I also feel like they could have always done that to begin with, is just give different ones to different people. But it does give it a little spin in just how they work a little bit without, like you said, over-explaining things. It's not overdoing it to the point where it's like you have to go through walls of text to understand it. You can just have this nice little infinity symbol. But, yeah, I can understand why he's upset of them not using an idea he finds very narratively interesting. Which, oh boy, happens unfortunately a lot. Especially in comics. I've seen, like, huge setup for, like, things in writing before, where just the author does, or the next author coming through, does nothing with it and just destroys the setting. Like, just straight up. It's definitely frustrating when you give someone another opening and they just kind of destroy everything. But you can't really control writing, or I guess you can't really control writers and what they choose to write. That's just how it be sometimes. But, yeah, the funny music's playing here for the obvious reasons.
It is still canon. They have not overwritten this, and the
okay.
stones do still flow in this circuit structure.
But they've done
but
nothing
it never
with it.
matters. Look, Marvel, I know that these high-concept cosmological things can be harder to sell to audiences.
Oh,
This,
yeah.
Gods, weirder Doctor Strange books, etc. But you can do it, I promise. You can get people excited about these things.
You just have
I
to...
get people excited about these things all the time. That's basically my whole job on this channel.
Yeah, they really
And
should be
that's why
starting
this
to
is
pay
my formal
you.
application to become Marvel's
Oh my
editor for their
God.
cosmological department. I'm kidding, kind of. We need to move
Kind
on.
of.
There is another element to the Infinity Stones.
Honestly, if there's one person that I trust with a little bit more of this, well, keeping an eye on the cosmopolitan or cosmology area of Marvel, it would probably be him. He knows a lot more of it than I ever would, and he seems to understand it a lot more than I ever would. So, yeah.
also introduced around the same time as the Infinity Circuit. It also does not really matter going forward, but this one is a lot more niche, so I understand why. However niche it is very cool and fun, so we do need to address it. Have you ever wondered what's inside the Infinity Stones? We know what's inside the Soul Stone. It is Soul World, but a recent Sleepwalker series, hey look, it's my boy, established that all of the stones have their own pocket dimensions
so
inside
if they
of
all
them,
do, then...
and they're all weird and insane. In this comic, Sleepwalker goes on a journey through all of the Infinity Worlds following the order of the circuit, so we'll begin our journey where he did inside the Power Stone. The world inside here is known as the Arena, and it's just a big non-stop fight. Literally, that's it. Power Stone is not complicated. It's just a bunch of eternal warriors punching each other forever. There's not a lot more lore that I can tell you about the arena. It just doesn't have any. I'll preface this next section of the video right now. The Infinity Worlds are pure rule of cool. They were just around for this miniseries to be fun and silly, which I am all here for. The only other two things I have to say about the arena are that its current champion is a guy named Dynamis. I know nothing about Dynamis. He refers to himself as the living embodiment of the power cosmic, but he might also be lying. Lastly,
listen, I barely understand what the hell goes on with the power cosmic itself. So, yeah, I don't really, I doubt he's the living embodiment of it.
This isn't even really lore. I just wanted to bring this up because I think it's such a fun line. When Sleepwalker first enters this world, the caption boxes refer to it like this. To endure here, one must possess great power. Responsibility is optional. Once his time...
Oh my god. I didn't expect the Spider-Man reference, but I guess didn't Sleepwalker have a crossover with Spider-Man at one point or another? I have no idea. I remember the Sleepwalker video. I don't remember if he ever had a crossover with Spider-Man, though. Had some pretty interesting abilities, though. Not gonna lie there.
In the Power Stone is done, Sleepwalker moves on to the world of the Space Stone, which is referred to as the Vast. To any fans of the Magnus Archives listening, yeah. The Vast is easy.
I don't know what that means.
It's the world inside the Space Stone. It's just infinite empty space.
I mean,
if you were expecting anything other than that, why?
Yeah.
I can't say anything else about this area. By definition, it is just big and empty. There's nothing for me to discuss.
I mean, I don't understand why anyone would expect anything else. It's space. Space is big and empty. Space, the only time space is not space is if there's something in it. So, yeah.
Gus, I will bring up one plot point that happens in this part of the comic, though, because I do love that. Sleepwalker's main power is vision-based. He can affect the structure of things within his line of sight, and his eyes are also really good, so basically the only thing that can bar his vision are physical obstructions. And in the Vast, there are no physical obstructions, which means his power is basically unlimited, and he is able to warp the structure of the infinite space, and that's how he gets out, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Once he leaves the Vast,
Time for the Time
moves
Stone.
into the Ellipsis, the world within the Time Stone,
which
is admittedly, in my opinion, the worst of them. I feel like there are some interesting things they could have done with a Time World, and they kind of just took the easiest option.
Which is...
It just seems to be a void where all time is experienced simultaneously, which could be a fun idea, but ironically, the least time is spent here. Sleepwalker's only in the Ellipsis for 3 pages, and most of it is unrelated conversation.
Yeah, sounds
we do get
about
to see a baby Sleepwalker, though, so that's fun.
Kind of horrifying.
Now, though, after 2 worlds that were basically empty, we go to
reality?
one that is very much the opposite. The pocket dimension inside the Reality Stone, otherwise known as the World Pool.
The World
This one is strange. The Whirlpool looks a lot like my apartment, by which I mean it is absolutely jam-packed with comic books everywhere you look.
I
You know how I said one of the canon explanations for the Reality Stone was that it accesses different parts of the multiverse? This is apparently how they chose to represent that. Within the Reality Stone are stories of everything that has ever happened within the Marvel Multiverse, chronicled literally in comic book form.
Squad Supreme.
Like, we get to see Sleepwalker holding a copy of Sleepwalker issue 1.
It's so weird.
The area is overseen by Archivos, chronicler of the multiverse. I don't know a lot about her either. She's just from this one book. But she seems to be like the owner of a cosmic comic book store that just contains everything within it. The books
That's
with
funny, I will not lie. Like, her design kind of reminds me of Pepsi Man of all things. But yeah, it's kind of funny that they made this here. I kind of like it. It makes sense given that the whole world of theirs is reality, is in fact a comic. So yeah, it works just fine for me.
within the whirlpool do seem to be magical artifacts in and of themselves as well. Sleepwalker escapes this realm because Archivus hands him another issue, and then that issue sucks him in and just deposits him in the next place he needs to be.
Is that
place
what is that?
is Soul World, which is
Soul
the end
World.
of his journey. It is a warped and distorted version of Soul World, but we're going to be talking about what that looks like and why it happened once we get back to the history parts of this video.
Okay.
And of course, there is one more stone that I haven't addressed yet, the Mind Stone.
Yeah.
And that's because Sleepwalker's journey here took a little bit of a different form. Mostly that he didn't go there, he started there.
Oh.
Sleepwalker is from a largely ill-defined realm.
Oh
within the
yeah,
Marvel Universe.
because he does live in the realm of the mindscape, where he literally fights basically nightmare beings. I forgot. Yeah, that makes sense. And he also lost his star thing that keeps him from, helps him get out of people's dreams and away from all that. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's on me. At the end of the day, I mean, he's literally a being of the mind itself. He's a weird, kind of alien dude from the mind dimension. So, yeah, him just being there makes total sense.
Called the Mindscape. And apparently, the
Mindscape.
Mindscape is literally contained within the Mind Stone. It is that pocket dimension. That does raise a couple of lore questions.
Another here in terms of my list, so the mindscape is in the stone, but more that Sleepwalker's mastery of mind allows him to enter the circuit at power. But also that the mindscape is drawing very, very yellow, so I don't know. At the end of the day, it's comic book craziness.
As the Mindscape is supposed to be like the actual Mindscape, the sort of collective psychic plane that everyone who thinks connects to. And I don't know if that would be contained within an Infinity Stone. So maybe the Infinity Worlds are less contained within the stones, and more like the stones are portals used to access them.
It's probably.
I don't know exactly, and honestly, trying to piece out the lore of the Infinity Worlds is kind of a futile task. As I said, they are rule of cool just for fun. With the Infinity Worlds addressed, there is really only one more thing that I need to talk about in the powers section before we move on and cover the stone's modern history. That being the stone's sort of being sentient. This has always been vague, likely on purpose, and canonically probably due to the fact that the Infinity Stones are weird primordial artifacts, and so even though they are sentient in air quotes, their sentience is not something that humans can easily understand and relate to. Point is, the stones have displayed some sort of will on occasion. The one to do it most often is the Soul Stone, and usually
for
in
obvious
regards
reasons.
to Adam Warlock. Warlock is bonded to the Soul Stone for most of his history, and that is a bond that the Soul Stone has chosen him for. Warlock is the Soul Stone's Warlock, really. And now that I've just briefly touched on that for the sake of mentioning it, we are done with the function of the Infinity Stones. This is, again, how they work in current canon going forward. If you go back and read some old books when they were the Infinity Gems, things might shift a little bit, but it is mostly the same. Now I can get to part 2 of the history section, picking up right where we left off.
I will go into that since we're ending here on this part. Well, I'm not ending the video, mind you. You can probably see by just looking down below. It's definitely interesting on how they've chosen to represent them. As for their sentience or not being, when it comes to magical objects who have a vague sense of sentience, it's usually they're sentient until they're not. It's the same thing with like Mjolnir and other sort of magical objects, that they're sentient so long as the writer wants them to be. Which, it's usually used for dramatic effect. Or them choosing the side of humanity, or them choosing to be better than the others around them. It's basically them doing a sort of chosen one thing, or trying to reunite with their kin. Yeah, it happens all the time in anything sort of magically based, where items can just be alive. With, obviously the Soul Gem and Adam Warlock being the one dealing with this the most. But, They kind of can do whatever they want with the gems, with the stones, honestly, at this point.
Secret Wars is done, and the destroyed Infinity Gems have been restructured as the Infinity Stones. But they didn't just pop up as a complete set. In the classic Infinity tradition, they were scattered across the universe. 2 out of 6 stones ended up on Earth, so we'll discuss those first.
Okay, which ones?
The Space Stone just kind of magically manifested inside a shield storage facility, at which point Loki tried to steal it.
Of course
you might notice something here. The new origins of the Infinity Stones do kind of line up with where they first appeared in the MCU. Loki did not manage to get away with the Space Stone, and due to these events, it ended up in the hands of Wolverine. Yeah,
really?
Wolverine wielded the Space Stone for a while, because Wolverine, as a person, is a very brutal fighter with an understanding of power. This was the arc where the Infinity Circuit first showed up, so Wolverine got space. The other stone appearing on Earth was the Mind Stone.
Of course.
We don't actually know exactly where it showed up. We just know that it ended up with a bunch of monks, and then those monks tried to, very responsibly, give it to Doctor Strange for safekeeping.
Makes sense.
And then those monks got attacked by aliens, because of course they did.
Of course.
And in the ensuing chaos, the Mind Stone was briefly lost, where it was picked up by a petty criminal named Turk Barrett. Turk Barrett is not a new character for this storyline. He has been around since the 70s as a Daredevil and Luke Cage villain. He was never major. He would occasionally get some super tech, but he was mostly just a New York City street crime guy. So giving him the Mind Stone was quite an upgrade.
Yeah.
Whether he has a full understanding of the soul in terms of the Infinity Circuit, I'm not sure. But at the very least, giving Turk the stone continued the tradition from this arc of giving the stones to people who usually wouldn't have them.
Yeah.
How does this parallel the MCU, you might be wondering?
Yeah.
Well, it's not really in terms of who had the stone or why. It's more that Turk wielded the Mind Stone by putting it on the end of a cane, so he kind of had a parallel to Loki's scepter. The third stone also eventually got to Earth, but took a more roundabout way to get there. This one was the Reality Stone, and rather than appearing in the main universe, it appeared in a sort of side dimension from it called
it's a very
Weird
creepy
World.
One. Weird World?
Technically
wait, I've heard of Weird World. I don't know what it's about or anything, and you guys can tell me down below, but I've heard the name Weird World before. I don't know what, but I've heard of it. I just don't know where from or how. It feels like, you ever feel that feeling of you should be remembering something, but you just don't? That's what I'm getting right now. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember, but nothing's coming up for me. Okay.
Earth 616, but on a different plane of existence. Weird World is, to just put it bluntly, Marvel's D&D zone. It is where they throw characters when they want to tell fantasy stories. And in line with that, the Reality Stone here took on a little bit more of a fantasy-esque appearance, being known as the Wuxian Seed. Weird World is like very distinctly medieval Europe aesthetics, so I'm not sure why they gave the Reality Stone a very Chinese name here, but whatever. The Wuxian Seed ended up in the hands of Morgan Le Fay,
that's
very
bad.
European aesthetics here, who ended up shattering it by accident, at which point the stone turned into this weird red aether-like mist. There's the MCU parallel. This mist then turned into a dragon. This admittedly looks pretty cool. I like the idea of taking the aether and turning it into a living being. And then somehow this aether dragon flew through a reality barrier and ended up on Earth back in Reality Stone form. The final three...
that's a little weird. I guess it just really wanted to get to Earth. I don't have any other explanation other than that could be the reason. But then again, it's in Weird World, so who knows. Oh, wait, yeah, Weird World was where all the Captain Britons meet and whatnot, and defend against Morgan Le Fay and her ilk when they're trying to take over. And Merlin's there, it's a whole, Sorry, it's been a while since I watched that video. I will say, I do like some of the designs from Captain Britain. The sword looks cool, though. I think it was the Sword of Power. But, yeah.
stones would not quickly make their way to Earth and instead ended up on other planets throughout the galaxy.
Okay.
The Time Stone ended up on a name you might recognize, Sakaar.
Sakaar.
Unlike what usually happens when very dangerous magic artifacts fall to your planet, the Time Stone's arrival was actually incredibly good for Sakaar, as the planet had recently gone through an apocalyptic destruction. But when the Time Stone manifested there, it used its powers, apparently automatically, to rewind the timeline of Sakaar and restore it to its natural state. It then just rested on the planet until it was later found and picked up by the Super Skrull. The Soul Stone was found on Ego the Living Planet, which, yeah, I mean, where else would the Soul Stone go but a planet that has a soul? Magus was the one to actually discover the thing, but then he was promptly defeated by, get ready for a very random character edition, Ultron Pym, a literal fusion of Ultron and his creator, Hank Pym.
Yeah, I actually know about this because I actually saw a bit of a video about Ultron where, yeah, at one point he fuses with Hank Pym and goes around the universe causing problems and then says, yes, this was caused by the Avengers. You want to head back to Earth and cause problems for them now. And, yeah, him and Ultron fused in a weird way. It became a whole thing because I don't really remember all of it, but it was weird. I don't remember why Ultron wanted to fuse with his dad here, but he did and eventually just took control himself. Ultron's a very complicated character, and that's due to the fact that the man who his brain is printed after is an extremely complicated character. At least from what I know about Hank Pym. Him and his time as Yellow Jacket, and, well, yeah. He's gone through a lot. Whether or not he's a good person, he's a complicated man, like I said. As for Ultron, he's a terrible person.
And there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's way outside the scope of this video.
Okay.
Interesting as that twist might be, if you're expecting this to go in a different direction than how the Soul Gem always ends up going, then no, Ultron Pym is then defeated by Adam Warlock, and
of course,
Warlock reclaims the
Soul Gem
stone for himself.
Yeah.
And then there's the Power Stone, which manifested a little bit differently than how they typically do. In all the other cases, the stones just looked pretty much like they did in gem form, albeit a little bit more rough and jagged. The Power Stone was also rough and jagged, it was purple in its new color scheme, and also it was huge.
What the hell?
Yeah, the new Power Stone was gigantic. It manifested on a barren desert planet and was only discovered because the sudden appearance of this gigantic thing that contained so much energy caused a gravitational anomaly that locked the planet into being a stationary location in space.
Wow,
The Nova Corps took some notice of that suddenly
Makes
happening,
sense.
and this triggered a big fight between the Nova Corps and the space extremists, the Fraternity of Raptors. The Guardians of the Galaxy got involved. It was a whole thing. Unfortunately, I say because it's less interesting this way, the Power Stone did end up getting shrunk down to normal size, and that is how it remained. But at least we got one cool storyline where it was very differently structured.
Okay, that at least seems like they had an interesting story with it. I wonder if someone just hit it with Pym particles or something. Well, that's at least how they usually shrink things in the Marvel universe, at least as far as I know, but yeah.
Once word began getting around that the stones were reappearing and new people were getting their hands on them, Doctor Strange tried to call a convention of the Wielders, hoping to establish a sort of new code for the Infinity Watch so that the Gauntlet would not be reformed.
Yeah.
Of course, in doing so, he did call all the Wielders to the same place.
Oh, yeah. By doing that, he obviously, whenever they do the Infinity Watch bit, that means you've technically called all of the gems to the same place, which means someone's going to steal them, because anytime there is a guard that forms to protect these gems, they are immediately stomped out by whoever wants to steal them, who steals them, and then does whatever the hell he wants with the gems. Usually something evil, and we've repeated the cycle. Maybe that Infinity scan for, the Infinity Stones, you know what I mean, like, that whole Infinity symbol that they were made out of them, kind of was just imprinting this, because, dear God, by calling them all together, you basically sealed your doom here. Like, I understand wanting to get them all, but maybe just keep them where they are right now.
which was maybe a bad idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Infinity Gauntlet got reformed.
Yep.
Such is the beginning of the
Infinity
event
Wars.
Yes, wars plural. It is a different thing from Infinity War. Maybe
Goddamn.
not great name aside, Infinity Wars does give us a good new take on the Thanos collects all the Infinity Stones and wipes out half of life storyline.
How so?
For one, because it wasn't Thanos doing it.
Ooh.
Instead, this time the main villain is Gamora following in her father's footsteps. This is cool enough in and of itself. Villain Gamora is an interesting idea, but where the comic really starts mixing things up is how exactly she uses the Gauntlet. Because yes, she does eliminate
in the
half
hilt of her sword.
Life, but she's not full supervillain in
I use the Gauntlet here as a shorthand for all the Infinity Stones there is one. She doesn't use the actual Gauntlet. The items itself is less relevant recently. Okay. I mean, that's fine.
This arc, and even though she's getting rid of half the life, she doesn't want to kill anybody. So what she does instead is combine them.
What?
In a storyline that would be called Infinity Warps, Gamora reduces life by half by taking every 2 souls and combining them into
this
one,
bit!
then taking that entire combined population and putting them into a modified soul world.
Yeah, I do know this bit because it happened with a lot of heroes fusing together, which is why we have, this is actually a skin I got in Spider-Man 2, the Insomniac game, which I wondered where it came from, so I looked it up, and yeah, this is a point where a bunch of heroes just get fused together, and it's kind of crazy. I guess that's one way of saving life by reducing it by half, just fusing everyone together. It is a different way, I'll give them that. It's definitely an interesting way to go about it, because I didn't ever expect to see Spider-Man and Moon Knight fused. And Captain America and Doctor Strange, of all things. And is that Johnny Blaze and Black Panther? Huh. That's very strange, but alright.
Storyline is
dig
crazy, and I love it because it is just non-stop rule of cool fun. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about it here because I will definitely do a whole video about it one day. But I'll give you just a quick couple of highlights so you have an idea of the vibe.
I think he just recently did a video about this as I'm posting this. Or as I'm posting this, as I'm recording this. I think he recently just released that video about this. So, yeah. That's kind of funny.
Moon Knight and Spider-Man are combined into a character named Arachnite.
Doctor
Strange and Captain America become Soldier Supreme.
Iron
Man and Thor become Iron Hammer. There's a Laura Kinney Wolverine and Scarlet Witch fusion. The Fantastic Four become the Terrific 2. There's a whole batch of 2099 fused characters.
Okay, I need to get a look at that 2099 crazy looks.
Iron Man and Thor become
I just want to really look
Hammer.
at it.
There's a Laura Kinney Wolverine and Scarlet Witch fusion.
Yeah, this looks crazy.
Four become the Terrific 2.
He fused with his wife. And yeah, what the hell? Who are these people? Oh, these are all 2099. That explains this Captain America. I'm not sure who she's fused with. I guess that's a She-Hulk 2099. This is a whole bunch of craziness, but a lot of the designs don't look bad.
Bunch of 2099 fused.
Like, this is crazy looks. Like, she looks cool there.
There's way too many to talk about. Like I said, this is deserving of its own video at some point.
Yeah.
But Warp World, as it's called, is just jam-packed full of fun stuff. And this is also the thing that set up the Infinity Worlds storyline. Sleepwalker's goal by traveling through all the stones was finding a way to safely get into Warp World so that he could rescue his best friend Rick Sheridan. A question remains, though, why did Gamora do this absolutely wild thing? She wasn't trying to make a tribute to death like her father, and the comic also is not using the MCU save resources excuse. Instead, it's something way wilder.
What is it?
Apparently, likely due to the restructuring of the multiverse, the new Soul Stone had been infected by a soul-eating interdimensional parasite named Devondra. Devondra was a spider, squid, eldritch abomination thing who could consume souls in their entirety and then use them to extrude a magical reality warping silk. supposedly strong enough that if you got enough of this silk, you could use it to weave an entirely new existence.
Okay, but how did you know about this?
This is the goal Gamora was trying to achieve. She wanted to feed Devondra enough so that she could make enough reality silk to reweave the universe in its entirety. Not because she was evil, but more because all of Gamora's traumas finally caught up with her, and she wanted to create a new world where no one would have to suffer like she did.
Oh, honey, it was like road with good intentions. The road to hell, as we always know, dear God.
This is why she did the weird soul fusion thing when she pulled everyone into
just
Soul
created
World.
more horrible
She needed
things.
to get everyone in the stone so that Devondra could eat them, but she knew that if she just took everybody in normally, all the heroes and villains would find a way to fight their way out.
Which they
so
probably
she
still did.
combined them, hoping that that dissonance would disrupt them enough and make them less effective. It is an admittedly weird...
The fusion also messed with people's memories, which probably should have mentioned. Yeah, understandably, it seems like a horrible plan, a horrible thing to do to people, honestly.
Plan. Why would she try to incapacitate people in such an incredibly specific way?
Yeah.
Well, just
Rule
because
of cool.
it was an excuse for Marvel to then write all the cool combined character stories.
Yeah.
And since those combined stories are so fun, I'm gonna let it slide.
Yeah,
Reality
that's
ends
good
up
to
getting
hear.
restored to normal by the actions of Loki, who had approached Gamora early before the fusion happened and gotten sealed into the Soul Stone independently. So he wasn't fused with anybody. He was therefore not reality warped and matched to the history of Warp World. He kept all of his memories, knew what was going on, and was able to form a team and escape.
Nice.
As I've said twice now, I will talk more about this Warp World arc in its own video at some point down the line, though I make no promises on exactly
What the hell is this?
The reason I have to call specific attention to it, though, is that at the end of this, we get more information on the current canon origin of the Infinity Stones.
Okay.
If you'll recall a while ago at this point, it was established all the way back in Thanos' quest that the Infinity Stones are shattered fragments of a supreme god being that once ruled over all existence.
Yeah.
This was not defined in the original storyline. Then in the 90s, they tried to define it as Nemesis, but nobody liked that, so they abandoned it.
We
In
ignore
the late 2010s and early 2020s, though, they decided to take another swing at this. This does not happen in one arc specifically. It takes place over a few, with information kind of getting drip-fed to us, but it happens due to the combined efforts of Al Ewing, Jason Aaron, and Jerry Duggan.
Oh, wow. Al Ewing again. Yeah, he's been in a lot of superhero videos, but then again, he seems like the guy who likes to explain everything. Which isn't a bad thing, but sometimes I do think some things are best left to mysteries.
Of Infinity Wars, Loki goes through a strange interdimensional portal at the bottom of a magical location called the God Quarry.
The
and
God
he ends
Quarry.
Up here, which is a single panel that has a lot of stuff to explain. This
Yeah.
realm is full of a lot of two very powerful things.
Celestials?
The first off being Celestials.
Yeah,
the
those are
giant
Celestials.
cosmic entities
Okay.
that predate the multiverse as we know it. And the second being Infinity Stones.
Oh.
That's what all those little glittering specks are. Those are individual stones, and a lot more of them than we usually see at once. To
Yeah.
explain why these incredibly powerful things are just floating in this weird pocket space, we need to zoom back to Marvel's prehistory and beyond, all the way to the first incarnation of reality in Marvel canon. The Marvel
that one.
multiverse exists in this fundamental...
Yeah, we went over this a few times in some of the different videos of how the Marvel multiverse formed. It's still kind of crazy that, yeah, it's the seventh multiverse, or the seventh universe. I'm gonna say multiverse because, you know, it's been over and over again, but yeah, we've gone over this quite a few
cycle of
times.
destruction and rebirth. The multiverse gets blasted out of existence and then reforms on multiple occasions, becoming more and more complex every time. I'm going to be skimming over how exactly this process works pretty quickly here, but I do have another video on this channel that goes into it in
It's also
a lot
another
more
very
detail.
long video.
So if you want more context on that and some other things I've skimmed over in this video, go watch my Marvel Cosmology feature. You can find it on the channel very easily. The thumbnail's on screen. While this destruction cycle has happened many times, the first one involved a sort of cosmic super entity called the First Firmament. This entity is described very similar to the original being that composed the Infinity Stones. It is one singular, all-encompassing consciousness. There is no distinction between the first universe and the first firmament. They are one
They
and
are
the
the same thing.
The first firmament is existence, and existence is the first firmament. But again, similar to how the original infinity entity is described, the first firmament is lonely, and so it creates underlings.
It created
These
the
creations,
Celestials.
the first independent beings in all of existence, are the Celestials, and they exist basically just to exist. They are weird and primordial and difficult to understand because they predate all future concepts, and their job is just kind of to experiment with what existence can be. They live just to live, meaning that the first firmament is no longer by itself. However, over a very long span of time, the Celestials begin to split in terms of their ideology.
Into two groups,
factions
I remember
of them form, the first one being more devoted to the firmament than the second. The more faithful entities worshipped the firmament directly, and though they experimented with existence and made their own creations, they always did so dedicated to the firmament and sought its approval for everything that they made. Meanwhile, the more creative and free of the Celestials thought that existence should have a chance to grow and flourish on its own, evolving without the constant approval of a creator being. This classic debate of structure versus freedom eventually blossoms into all-out war. A war that becomes so intense that the two warring factions shatter existence itself. And this leads to the creation of the first multiverse. This is weird, high-concept, philosophical, and almost religious stuff that can be hard to wrap your head around, so I'll recap it briefly. Since the first firmament was singular and all-encompassing, and its celestials were direct, to use a more literal religious term, emanations of itself, there was no variation and there was no multiverse. There was just the firmament and just existence. But when the Celestials began breaking off from the firmament,
they start doing their own thing.
Shattered it into multiple iterations, and thus the multiverse and different versions of the universe spawned going forward. This appears connecting the dots between canon to also be the origin of the Infinity Stones. When the first firmament was broken, much of it became different universes, but little tiny chunks of it, those became condensed sources of power that bonded to the universes, resulting in the stones. This does not line up one-to-one with the first Thanos quest lore, but it is pretty similar. One more time, in the original lore, the Infinity Stones are pieces of a supreme being that shattered itself due to loneliness, and the new stuff kind of just adds an extra step in the middle. The supreme being created pieces of itself that were alive.
It's honestly kind of impressive how this has all been kept similarly as long as it's been here. Like, you'd expect it to change all that much, and, well, technically it has, but it's more like it just got explained more than anything else. It's, I gotta give it to the writers for that. Especially Al Ewing for all of this.
Due to loneliness, but then when those pieces began fighting, that caused the shattering. This means that all Infinity Stones across the multiverse come from the same place. Many of them are in universes, but some reside in these weird in-between gap spaces where they are managed by the Celestials. Whether the Celestials actively send Infinity Stones into universes, or the Infinity Stones appear in them naturally, or maybe a little of column A and a little of column B, I couldn't tell you. But I do like this idea for a unified canon. This also, once again, sets us up very nicely to pause on the Infinity Stone history and talk about another aspect of them before finishing up with the most modern stuff. There are Infinity Stones in most, if not all, of Marvel's different realities, but they can have a lot of difference between them. Sets can have different powers, different numbers, different colors, sometimes different shapes. They don't have to be stones. Before we get to talking about the most recent Infinity Stone canon and the storylines that are actually going on in currently releasing comics, let's talk about some other Infinity Stones out there, from the cool to the incredibly stupid. We will start with a set that is both easy to explain, but also fills me with a burning rage. That being the Infinity Stones from the Ultimate Universe.
The Ultimate Universe was always a bit darker than the original, and sometimes are a bit, sometimes they made dumb decisions in a lot of the Ultimate comics. And the Ultimate Universe has apparently died again, but apparently they said that the Ultimate Universe will return. That's probably just a cliffhanger to try and get more people to read the books and, gain support for it. But yeah, the Ultimate Universe is dead again.
The original one, not the one from recent years.
Yeah.
The lore of these stones is incredibly different than a lot of others we've seen.
Oh.
According to Invisible Woman, they are formed in the wake of catastrophes on Earth specifically.
Okay.
So I don't know if the Infinity Stones are like just bonded to Earth or there are Infinity Stones on other planets. We don't get a lot of detail here.
That's
All
weird.
I can say for sure is that Infinity Stones
They're like
are
scar
formed
tissue.
after disasters, again quoting Invisible Woman, to help prevent infection to the planet.
What?
And I have no
I
idea
don't know
what
what
that
that
means.
means.
I don't get how forming an
Yeah.
Infinity Stone helps prevent planet infection, but whatever. These stones also appear
YouTube monetized like that. Oh, that bit, yeah. I know what this bit is because I saw it from a short.
in incredibly weird places. One of them manifested in Tony Stark's brain.
Yeah, which
and
the
they thought it was
maker,
a tumor
I
and
think-
had to eventually do brain surgery on him to get the Infinity Stone out.
Which
Weird
is
lore.
which is incredibly horrifying, and I don't know why they needed to show that on screen, but some people like the grosser part of comics. It's something that only comics can do. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but if you like that kind of stuff, more power to you, I guess. You do you, man.
Of them aside, the more important note for our purposes
There's
is
Hulk.
that this universe does not have 6 stones. Rather, it has 8 across
Oh.
2 gauntlets, each with 4 slots.
Okay.
Here's the part that fills me with a burning rage. Let me run through the domains of the stones really quick.
Here we go.
We have the classic time, mind, soul, power, space, reality, and then I don't know the last 2 because the comic never tells us.
Oh, wow.
Why on
That's
earth
dumb.
would you actively canonize 2 more stones and then
We
never
never
tell the
do anything.
readers what their powers are? Just
I
slap 2
don't
words
know.
on them. The individual stones didn't matter that much in Ultimates in terms of unique powers.
Mm-hmm.
They were mostly just made to form the Gauntlet. So just add 2
Damn.
more words. If nothing else, I can tell you the colors of the Ultimate set. Once again, we have the
Okay, I'm pretty sure this is the only case where all the 8 stones are shown in the same panel at the same time, so the only one I can really... It looks like 7 letters, but the yellow one is the little dot on Tony's chest, half obscured by his chin. Okay, first things first, gems.
original 6, but then in the middle of this panel, we have a white stone, and then another blue stone. There are 2
Weird.
blue ones in the same panel, but given that this one is next to white and also doesn't have the little shine that the others do, I'm going to assume this one is supposed to be black. In terms of what these
Okay.
white and black stones can do, well, I actually do have a theory, but we'll get to that later. For now, let's move on to the next universe, which has an entire unique gauntlet of stones.
Oh!
These Infinity
Alright.
Stones are from the Marvel Contest of Champions mobile game, which, unlike
Weird.
some of Marvel's other games,
Okay,
does
white,
have an
red.
active connection to the
Let's see,
main
white, red, black and white, and then purple for some reason.
comics multiverse.
And then yellow.
This game takes place in a weird, kind of hard to explain pseudo-universe called Battle Realm, and since the
is
universe
it
is
supposed to
not
be like
truly
Battle
natural,
World?
the stones aren't either. Rather, they were created artificially by an evil future
Oh,
version of Hulk named
Monstro.
the Maestro.
Or Maestro,
However,
sorry.
despite being artificial, their creation does line up with other Infinity Stone origins, as Maestro forged the set out of a material known as ISO 8.
Oh.
ISO 8 is also complicated, but is canonically a weird cosmic pseudo-substance that is
Oh,
made
great.
out of the remnants of destroyed realities. Remember how I said the Marvel multiverse has been destroyed and reborn on several occasions?
Yeah.
The current canon is the 8th iteration of that cycle, and this is why ISO 8 is called what it is. The weird cosmic stuff has arranged itself into patterns of 8 because that's the number of multiverses that we're on.
Okay.
Using these existential fragments, Maestro created 5 stones, which are
6. I mean, it's understandable. I originally thought there was just 5, but I keep forgetting that there's 1 on the thumb. But that's just me.
distinctly more evil than Infinity Stones usually are, but since they
Oh.
were actively made by a villain, I guess that
It kind of makes sense.
Battle Realms Gauntlet holds the Genesis Stone, the Evolution Stone, the War Stone, the Nightmare Stone, the Chaos Stone, and the Death Stone.
Okay.
What they can do individually, we don't really know specifics. They are mostly just a plot device for the video game.
Of course.
You can kind of guess what some of them are capable of from the name, but others are a little bit more vague.
Yeah.
This is not the last time that we're going to be seeing a Death Stone, though, so keep that one in your head.
Oh, no.
Moving on, I would be remiss to not.
Oh, yeah, from Superhero Squad, where we also have the Infinity Sword, and we also have the Infinity Gauntlet, which the show is mostly about them battling over both of these. First the Infinity Sword, then the Infinity Gauntlet, which then we have a Dark Silver Surfer that gets both, and then decides to make the Earth go off its axis, which is terrifying in its own right.
The Infinity Sword from the Superhero Squad show.
It was a fun show.
Not a variant of the Infinity Stones or Gauntlet, as those also exist in this reality. But there is a connection between the two, so I'm going to bring it up. And if you think moving from a set of rocks to a sword is departing from the formula pretty quickly, what if we returned to rocks, but made the rocks a guy?
What? Wait, wasn't this a skin that the Thing got for Marvel Rivals? What is this? He's a little too shiny for my taste here.
This is Infinity Thing, who I know a lot of you wanted me to talk about because you were already commenting his name under my announcement post about this video days ago. He appears to be a variant of Ben Grimm that is somehow composed of Infinity Stones.
What?
As wild of a concept as this is, I have nothing else to say to you about him. He's only been in one series ever, and he doesn't really get any lore. He's just there to be there because he's cool. He would make a great Marvel Rivals skin, though.
They already did it, buddy. They already were on it. Like, as soon as you think, oh, this would make a great Marvel Rivals skin, they're probably already having it on the way.
Not every weird or unique Infinity Stone is just a quick bit, though. Sometimes it's a quick bit with lore and references behind it. And my favorite example of this is a group called the Planes of Forever Glass.
What?
You might think this is a joke when you first hear it. Forever Glass does kind of sound like a cheesy ripoff of Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
And that vibe just gets enhanced when you see how they combine into the six sides of a cube called a wishing box.
A wishing box?
Everything immediately adds up, though, when you see some of the other characters from the universe that the wishing box comes from. There is a solar-powered super guy in a spandex suit and a cape. There's an edgy, brooding dark warrior with a lot of gadgets. There's a speedster.
I see what's going on here.
There's one with light powers that form constructs, and there's also a magic user with a distinctly Egyptian aesthetic and onks everywhere.
Oh my god.
This group is called the Great Society, and they appeared very briefly in a multiverse storyline as a clear nod to DC and the Justice League.
And the Justice Society.
The wishing box is not just a joke, it's a reference to DC's mother boxes. Yeah. This is a very good and tasteful acknowledgement of the distinguished competition. Silly. And then Doctor Strange kills them all, so eat your heart out.
What? Why? Just why? You're being so nice. I don't know why. Why did he need to do this? Were they like secretly evil or something? What's going on here?
Power scalers. Oh, and speaking of things that will confuse power scalers, and going back to
there's things that always confuse them.
This time, the new recent one though. This is Gary. He wields the Infinity Gauntlet.
What?
I don't really have anything else to tell.
And even Gary, the wielder of the Infinity Gauntlet, struggles to maintain the interior of the ship present without. Who the hell is Gary? Why does he exist? Why is he here on my front? Why? Why are they doing this? I don't know.
Tell you about him, so this is Gary. He wields the Infinity Gauntlet. Gary leads us nicely back into discussing the idea of joke Infinity Stones.
Of course.
And I'll use that to transition out of alternate universes and back into the main 616 continuity. Because yes, even though there are usually just the 6 normal stones, there have been others over the years.
Oh yeah, the Stone of Continuity.
Deadpool has one singular time wielded a black or perhaps very dark purple stone, or technically gem, given the era that it's from, called the Continuity Gem, which you can immediately tell is very on brand. The
Yeah.
continuity gem allows you to alter the history of Marvel Comics however you want, creating
course.
retcons in an instant. But Deadpool never really uses it for anything. He gets his hands on it for like 2 pages, has a little bit of fun, and then literally just throws it away, where we see some Marvel editors picking it up and carefully depositing it in a box to never be seen again.
Of course.
The other major Infinity Stone joke that Marvel has
this
published
bit.
contains a full set of stones, at least almost,
Howard the
and they have
Duck.
only appeared in a Howard the Duck comic.
Of
These
course.
5 gems, yes, only 5, form a weapon known as the Abundant Glove.
The Abundant
and I'm going to make
Glove.
you guys guess what they do.
I mean, I remember him telling me these, but I don't remember their names. I remember he told us them, but I don't remember them at all.
For longtime viewers,
Oh, dear.
yes, I have done this exact same trivia question in a previous video before.
Yes, you did.
But if you've seen that one, you can't deny that it's one of the best Marvel trivia questions I could ever ask.
it's silly.
And there are new people here, so I'm doing it again. If you already know the answer, just sit back and relax. Don't spoil it for anyone
I
else.
don't
and
remember
if you don't
the
know
answers.
the answer, please pause the video and put in the comments what you think the powers
God.
of the 5 gems in Howard the Duck's Abundant Glove do.
Abundant
I will
Glove.
give you a hint, if you can even consider this a hint. They are all jokes, so don't overthink it.
Of course they are. A
All right,
dance
everybody
stone.
ready?
I know
Here
one
we
is a
go.
dance
The
stone.
gems
There's
that
another
form
dance
the
stone.
Abundant Glove consist of the Compassion Gem, the Laughter Gem, the Dance Gem, the Respect Gem, and another second Dance Gem. You see why I wanted to do this
Yeah,
as a trivia
I do remember
question bit
that.
again, right? It's a very good one. As for the actual canon
It's very
status of
goofy.
these joke stones in the main universe, the continuity stone is not canon. I
Of
mean,
course
we
not.
literally see the editors take it away, though I guess if Deadpool ever wants it, he could theoretically somehow find a way to get it again. Weirdly, I think the abundant
Probably,
gems
though.
of the Abundant Glove might actually be canon, though, because
Really?
they are called the Abundant Gems. They are not Infinity Stones,
They tell you
so
they
they
make
could
someone-
just be like weaker
someone named-
replicas of them. That
Made them
doesn't
really
conflict with any
powerful.
of the existing lore. And let's be honest, even if they were canonically considered Infinity Stones, that would not be the first time that Marvel has made canon stones beyond the first 6. I
Of
mentioned
course.
the Ego Gem a while ago.
Yeah.
That one was technically canon for a time as the 7th. Even though that particular one has not been referenced in quite some time, in recent years, Marvel has been playing around with the idea of a 7th official stone
Of course
in
they
the
have.
main
Where did
set.
it even go on the
I promised
Gauntlet,
we were
though?
going to come back to the idea of a Death Stone. Time to address that. Or
Yeah.
really, those.
Those?
Since 2015, there have been 3 different items referred to as the Death Stone, with
Oh.
increasing levels
Huh.
of canon
Not
relevance.
good.
We'll begin with the oldest one because it's also the quickest.
Right.
The first technical use of the term Death Stone appears in a Secret Wars miniseries as part of the
Okay.
weird multiverse amalgamated battle world. This means it is not technically canon to the main universe, but it is worth bringing up.
also
However,
seems-
I don't think this stone technically counts as a Death Stone in
Why do
the
you think
actual
so?
sense. While the character who uses it does call it the Death Stone, she uses it as a trap. It is an exact
Oh.
replica of the Reality Stone, made to trick Thanos into picking it up.
I
And when
see.
he puts it in the gauntlet, then it immediately kills him.
Yeah.
And we can literally see the quote-unquote Death Stone disintegrate afterwards, while the other gems remain intact. So
I mean, yeah, I don't think I would want to keep that if that did happen. Like, actively keep that stone away from me.
it seems like it was just a trap that was only designed for that and not a real Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
A few years later, though, the idea of a Death Stone would reappear in... Look,
Thor,
sometimes a
Herald
single
of
panel
Nothing.
has the power to throw an entire fan base into a frenzy.
I don't know anything about this. I know that the costume for this was used in Marvel Rivals. That's where most of my knowledge is going to be here with that. But other than that, I don't know where this is going to go. I wonder what's going to happen here. You guys can tell me how bad this comic is down below. Like, does it hurt Thor's character? What exactly does it do? And why do people dislike it? You can obviously tell me down below.
And this is one of those panels. At the end of an issue of
maybe
the
people
Thor
just don't
series
like
by
this
Donny
version.
Cates, Thor gets a grim vision of the future, which features Thanos wielding in one hand Mjolnir with the Infinity Stones embedded in it, and on his other hand, a black gauntlet with what seems to be a
one
black
giant
Infinity
gem.
Stone inside.
Yeah.
This thing is not technically called the Death Stone, to be fair. I believe it's only ever referred to as the Black Stone. But also, it's Thanos wielding it, and he's surrounded by an army of zombies, and there's a caption box that literally says, "There was no life." So it's pretty clear what this was intended to be.
Yeah.
I don't think I have to explain
Also,
why this
there's
made
an
everybody
undead
freak
sentry.
the hell out, wondering what this vision was possibly teasing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I'm not
Nothing
going to go
happens
into a
with
lot
it.
of detail on it because of an actual real-world story.
Oh.
Like I said, this was shown fairly early on in the Thor series by Donny Cates, but in the middle of this series, Donny suffered a severe brain injury due to a car accident. He has since recovered
sad.
from this, thankfully, so the story is not as sad as it could be, but he did have to stop writing for a time. Donny has also been very open about the fact that this injury left him with severe amnesia, to such an extent that not only did he forget some of his future plans, he entirely forgot books that he had already written. So we...
Oh, that's horrible. My heart goes out to the man, because, yeah, that's very sad. At least he's okay now, but still, having a bit of amnesia like that is kind of scary to someone like me. I'd rather not forget such things.
We don't know and will likely never know what the original intent for this stone was. Donny's Thor series was close enough to a conclusion point that it didn't end right there. It was handed off to another writer who wrapped it up. And they did follow up on the Black Stone thing, but in a kind of weird to follow way. It was tied to Hela, like specifically a young Hela, and there was time travel stuff going on. As I said, it was kind of weird, and Marvel has not directly followed up on it since this.
Okay.
So, yeah, we don't really know what this scene was supposed to be. It is entirely possible that it will get paid off at some point down the line, especially because Marvel surely knows that fans were very excited for it. So maybe they will do something.
Still,
but it likely
why is there
won't
a Death
resemble the
Stone?
original intent, therefore I'm not too sure what else to say about it here. But one thing I did say very specifically is that Marvel has not directly followed up on this. There is a third Death Stone, apparently a different one, and one that is active in current canon. This iteration first appears in a 4-issue Thanos miniseries from 2024.
It's always Thanos.
However, despite the name, Thanos is not really the protagonist of it, and it revolves more around Death, the entity. Much of the story revolves around Death becoming bored of her cosmic existence and wanting to experience life as a mortal human. She is able to achieve this thanks to the help of the Illuminati, but it pisses Thanos off to no end when he finds out he has worshipped Death in her cosmic state for a very long time.
Because I'm told I could not stop for Death. Thank you, Emily Dixon. Will you get it? Oh my god. Yeah, of course, Thanos is pissed because Death wants to live what it's like to be a human, and she didn't. I'm guessing it's because she didn't ask him for help, or because he hates that Death wants to live, or something like that. That's the only possible thoughts I could come up with here.
And by her turning into a human, Thanos sees it as insulting to both of them. The two have a bit of a falling out over this, as Thanos...
I mean, it's more of a bit of falling out on his side, because Death never cared for him, it really seems like, and just gave him impossible tasks for him to just leave her alone. Which is kind of funny, considering that happens in some media stories.
Thanos sees himself as the only one capable of purifying his wayward lover.
Purifying.
And at the end of this conflict, the lore gets weird. Thanos wants to pacify Death so that he can quote-unquote...
You have become unworthy with how you are perverse of your very essence.
But he can't just get rid of Death in the universe. That has happened in other realities, and it goes very badly.
So
what he does to preserve Death but weaken her consciousness is
put
turn
her in her
Death into an Infinity Stone.
How?
To be extra clear about what just happened here, this is not
he shoved her into a stone.
It is an actual one.
Oh.
From this comic on, Marvel has treated the Infinity Stones not as a set of 6, but as a set of 7 with the Black Death Stone included.
Oh, God.
You're probably wondering how
Yeah.
on Earth or in space or anywhere did Thanos create a new true Infinity Stone?
Yeah.
And boy, we have absolutely no idea.
Of course, they probably don't answer that question. They probably don't plan on to until a writer decides to pick it up. That's how it always goes, huh, guys?
Reed Richards immediately asks Thanos
Yeah.
how he did that, and Thanos' response is, I cannot control it, which is not an answer.
Yeah, that's not an answer.
I have my theories as to where this could be going. That is what a lot of the conclusion to this video is going to consist of. But before we return to that and the Death Stone, let's bounce back to the others. What are the original 6 doing currently?
Okay.
History of the Infinity Stones, Part 3. Where we last left off, it was after Infinity Wars, the event where Gamora got them and then did the weird thing where she combined every 2 people into 1 person, but was eventually defeated. That's where I stopped for Part 2 of the history, and I didn't tell you where the stones went after that, so I'll address that first. In the aftermath of the Infinity Wars comic, the stones get a big new status quo shift because they become more alive than they had been in the past, largely thanks to the actions of Adam Warlock. After yet another The Infinity Stones are assembled for the cause of evil incident, Adam Warlock makes the call that maybe the only people worthy to wield the Infinity Stones
are the Infinity Stones themselves. Yeah, that's where I thought we were going.
With his mastery over and connection to the Soul Stone,
he gives them life.
Activates souls within every one of the stones. I mentioned this very briefly earlier.
There should be souls that protect themselves or die trying. They'll do what we'll do or back here again.
Have been dancing around the idea of the stones being sentient or alive for decades at this point, and this comic really locks that in. The stones now have wills of their own. They are not truly entities. They don't just bloom into new people. They are still little rocks, and they still cannot use their powers entirely on their own. But they have power over where they go, and therefore they can choose who wields them. This begins the build-up to a new Infinity Watch.
Of course.
Guardians of the Stones chosen by the Stones themselves. Now, these are relatively new characters. Each member of the new Infinity Watch has gotten about 1 arc individually, and then 1 combined miniseries as the Infinity Watch team, but that ended in 2025. They are still active players in Marvel's cosmology.
See, this is a very interesting looking team, but they seem to, since he mentioned they're active players, which means they're still around, which is interesting given that they probably don't have that many comics, unless the series was long running for a bit. I don't know. It's possible, but I don't think we're done with the history of the stones or where they are now, so yeah.
And we do not know where their storyline is going to end. Therefore, I cannot tell you their story completely, so I'm just going to hit all of the members very quickly so you're up to date on what's going on.
What are their names?
The current host of the Reality Stone is Ripley Ryan, who usually goes by the simple superhero code name of Star. Star was actually a Captain Marvel villain before the Infinity Stone stuff happened, but only for a few issues. As a child, Ripley was very badly abused by her mother, which would give her some confidence issues and trauma that would manifest in her powers down the line. As an adult, she became a reporter and was given superpowers through Kree experimentation. She volunteered for these experiments willingly, wanting to become a superhero and therefore adored by the public, and she was the only surviving test subject, eventually becoming bonded to Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. The bond was, however, unwilling on Carol's part. The evil Kree scientist Minerva had infected Carol with a sort of power-siphoning virus that was draining off Carol's energy and funneling it into Ripley. So as Star, she was literally using stolen superpowers from Captain Marvel, which obviously caused some problems.
Of course.
To summarize this first arc before the Infinity stuff happens very quickly, Star's unresolved trauma bubbles to the surface. She becomes incredibly jealous of Carol as a potential better hero. This leads to her becoming a villain, and eventually the device implanted in her that was siphoning Carol's power gets ripped out, leaving her powerless temporarily. While in prison for this incident,
I thought she was
is
dead.
Chosen as the host of the Reality Stone and uses its capabilities to become Star again, applying the Reality Stone's weird logic in a very narratively cool way. Star's main powers are kind of just Captain Marvel's again.
Oh.
She can fly, she can shoot energy blasts,
guess
etc.
if
But
she
since
wanted
they are no
those
longer
specific
literally
powers.
powered by Carol's own abilities and are fueled by the Reality Stone, they are tied to Ripley's perception of herself.
Perception
Star
of reality.
is not using energy
and
to
of
give
herself.
herself abilities. She is literally warping her own reality to make herself a superhero. And if
It's kind of interesting way to go about it, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like that. Just warping their own reality so it's their reality that they perceive is the right one. It's also a very horrifying power, but still very interesting in way to use it.
her confidence in her heroic capabilities is shaken, then her perception of herself becomes less heroic, and her powers go away. This makes her extremely vulnerable to mental manipulation and even just straight up scariness. Like, if Star is going up against a villain such as Thanos, Thanos has such an intimidating presence that it's actually going to weaken Star's literal power output. I enjoy this idea a lot. Powers being tied to confidence is something that I have seen in a few places before, but I think in Star's case, tying it to the Reality Stone is written and shown very well. It's also worth noting that her powers are not just limited to Captain Marvel things. In some books, more recent ones especially, she has been shown using the physics and matter manipulation of the Reality Stone to very great effect.
Alright.
While Star is a superhero again, in at least the most technical sense of the term, she is a fame-based superhero, and I'm sure most of us have a decent understanding of how those tropes go. She is a hero because she wants to be, so that she gets adored by the public. She is willing to kill, she is willing to do bad things to maintain her reputation.
So long as she looks good.
In practice, but for bad reasons, and that can turn very quickly if things go south.
Yeah, she's a hero in name unless things start to turn bad for her, and then she starts to lose control, like usually the heroes that, you know, are, whenever they do the heroes are celebrity thing, which, for some of them doesn't turn out well. Yeah, and that's worrying.
Now, speaking of characters who are not the best mentally, let's move on to the current host of the Power Stone.
Okay.
His superhero name is Apex, but his real name
Not a
is
bad name.
Other One.
Other One
is the spare child of an alien queen.
Oh.
Yes, I just
spare
said
child?
child.
What do you mean?
Other One's royal mother wanted genetically perfect children and thus conceived them artificially. Her main son is named Magistar, which is very fancy and regal, etc. She also wanted a backup kid just in case something happened, though, so she made a second one and literally named him Other One.
Wow.
Other One was considered a failure. Shocking. I'm sure none of us were able to guess that from his name. Despite supposedly being genetically engineered, he came out not as intended. He was physically frail, he had a very low level of intelligence, etc. However, he did have a very kind and heroic spirit, leading to him getting chosen as the host of the Power Stone. He was not just immediately magically imbued with the might of the Power Stone. No, instead, the stone manifested into a bowl of jelly beans that Other One was eating, and then he ate the thing.
Why do people keep eating Power Stones? I guess this could just be a callback to the fact Drax ate the Power Stone, but why is the Power Stone does the Power Stone like being eaten? This makes things, now that I just said that out loud, it makes me feel uncomfortable a bit.
Making this not only the second time that the Power Stone has been eaten by a guy, it is the second time that it has been specifically mistaken for a jelly bean.
Yeah.
With his physical form mystically perfected, he took on the temporary superhero code name Prince of Power and began going on adventures throughout the galaxy.
He does look like an Adonis.
I like Prince of Power a lot because he is one of the very rare times that we get to see the Infinity Circuit applied, and fitting the creativity of the Infinity Circuit, it's applied in an interesting way.
Well,
the Power Stone should logically be governed by mastery of mind, and Apex, Prince of Power, Other One, whatever you want to call him, he's not particularly intelligent, so why is he a good fit for the Power Stone? The comic addresses this directly by establishing that intelligence is not the only way one can express mastery over the mind.
That is
Other
true.
One masters the power of the stone through meditation, essentially. By focusing, clearing his mind, and thinking of literally nothing at all, he has mastered his mind, and it does exactly what he wants, therefore giving him total control over the Power Stone.
Cool.
Very fun idea.
Yeah.
With his full capabilities understood, Prince of Power went on several more adventures, often with various members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and
Okay,
eventually
cool.
joined the new
I'm glad he's
Infinity
with
Watch,
them.
abandoning the codename Prince of Power and taking on the name Apex. Those are the two new Infinity Watch members with the most history and
new.
appearances. The others will be a little bit quicker. So,
I will say this, I do like Apex. Star has a bit more edge to her, I guess, and I think that's okay. She overall seems kind of cool. But yeah, yeah, I like Apex more or less, and I do like that he actually gains power and is able to gain confidence in himself. Star is a bit more of a mixed bag, but I think that's on purpose, obviously.
let's move on to the Space Stone, who is now owned by a guy going by Quantum.
Quantum,
We don't know
huh?
anything about Quantum's history before his bonding to the stone. We don't even know his real name.
Oh.
All that we know is that, like the others, the stone bonding happened somewhat instantaneously and more directly than in the case of Apex. The
Wow.
stone just appeared within
Yeah,
his
it's in his
body and kind
chest.
of messed him up, spatially speaking.
Oh, yeah.
Wanting to remove the stone from his body, Quantum made a contract with the villainous super AI named the Assessor, who
Oh, the
promised
Assessor.
to analyze and eventually
He's
remove
not
the stone
good.
if Quantum acted like his enforcer until that point.
Hmm.
While under Assessor's control, Quantum was a Miles Morales and Iron Man villain for an
Oh.
arc or two, but at the end of that, the heroes are able to free him from the evil AI, so he goes and joins the Infinity Watch. Like I said, these next ones are pretty fast.
Alright.
Continuing, the current host of the Time Stone is Hector Batista.
Hector
First seen
Batista?
imprisoned for murder, but
What?
wrongfully so. He
Ah,
was convicted
okay.
for a crime that he did not commit, and when the Time Stone manifested to him, that provided him a way out of his grim fate.
Yeah.
The big thing with Hector, who takes on the superhero code name of Overtime, is
Overtime's
that he
not a
doesn't
bad name.
really know how to use his powers effectively, at least not for a while.
Oh.
Very shortly after leaving the prison, he is captured by the space extremists, the Fraternity of Raptors.
Oh, great,
Hey, look,
they're
unintentional
here.
synergy with the Darkhawk video I did earlier this month. I love it when that happens.
Yeah.
He is followed to space by Loki and Wolverine, who have a wild team up in order to rescue him. And in
Okay.
the ensuing chaos, Hector does manifest his powers and freezes time.
Oh.
And then he doesn't know how to put it back.
Oh,
He is stuck there in
Worrying.
frozen time for 3 days from his perspective, but he is able to spend this time learning more about the Power Stone and trying
At
to
least
figure
he's
out
able
how
to
his
do
powers
that.
work. So he eventually figures out how to start the flow of time again, and from here he knows how to use his abilities more. Then he becomes a hero,
that's
joins
good.
the Infinity Watch, etc. There is one more thing.
at least he was able to learn how his powers work instead of, just able to sit around. Well, I mean, he did have the time for it, I guess, to figure out how everything works there. Yes, that was a pun. Yes, I will create more if I can later.
I want to shout out about Overtime, though, because he does something very smart. As a time-based character, he on occasion pulls versions of himself from out of his
Oh.
own timeline, and
Interesting.
he is smart enough to change his costume frequently so that it's very clear which version of himself is him. I wish more time characters would do that.
Yeah, it would
Second
be
to
smarter.
last, now, well, not actually, but we'll get there in just a couple of minutes. The Soul Stone ends up with a robot named Ward. And with the Soul
Ward,
Stone
huh?
ending up in an artificial being, you might be able to guess where this is going.
Yeah.
As a synthetic person, which is his preferred term of reference, Ward was created specifically to be sentient artificial life as part of experiments designed to explore the concept of a soul. Ward
Okay.
is not a
So he'll gain a
superhero.
soul.
He can fly, he's more durable, and he has limited technological control, but that's just because he's a robot. He was not
Yeah.
designed for fighting, he was designed to mingle with and exist alongside humans, which
Yeah.
ended up going kind of badly for him.
Oh,
He was
damn.
eventually attacked by a group of prejudiced humans
Of
and
course.
almost destroyed, but in that moment, the Soul Stone chose and bonded to him, taking over control of his body in the process and continuing the pattern that the Soul Stone is the most independent. From this point on, Ward's whole question is what you think it is. Does
Do
he, as an
have
artificial being, have a
a
soul
soul?
at
Yeah,
all?
we know where the
Soul
story's
Stone
going.
chose him, so did it choose him because
Does
he
he
has a
have
good
soul?
soul, or did it choose him because the
So he
Soul
lacks
Stone
one.
is independent and therefore wanted a body that did not have a soul which would conflict with its own? I don't believe this question has been answered yet. Ward is one of the least seen of the new Infinity Watch members, but he does
Okay.
have some cool and relatively unique powers that we haven't seen the Soul Stone do much before, that being making soul constructs.
Oh.
It has been well established that the Soul Stone can absorb and contain souls, and Ward has the ability to manifest the bodies of those souls under his control and make them fight on his side, which has led to him taking the superhero codename of Multitude. Finally-ish, for this new roster, we have the Mind Stone, the only one of the batch that bonded to a long-running character.
Oh.
The Mind Stone is currently held by the martial artist Colleen Wing.
Never heard of her.
Technically speaking, she was not the Stone's original choice of host.
Oh.
We don't know a lot about this guy. All that we really know is his name was World Mind. World Mind has only ever been seen once, so I don't have a lot of information about him. He is human, or at the very least, he looks human, and he was seen
he can
on
still be
Earth,
an alien.
so that's the closest we're going to get.
Oh,
he apparently had the ability to see the future, and thus was able to predict his own death at the hands of Thanos. So like 10-15 minutes before that was supposed to happen, he contacted Colleen Wing to meet him at a given location, and then after he was murdered, the Mind Stone went on to its next host, who was conveniently right there.
I see.
Colleen didn't take on a new name or anything after she got the stone. After all, she's an old character. She didn't really need one. Colleen Wing first debuted in 1979 in an Iron Fist comic.
Oh,
and
cool.
despite having the most appearances out of any of the Infinity Watch members in total, she has had the least as a member of the Infinity Watch.
Oh, okay. Like, I don't know her at all, but given that she seems to wield that sword pretty well, I guess she just... I do wonder what sort of powers it gives her, adding on to her probably usual martial arts bit.
She gets the stone and then joins the team almost immediately. There's not really a starting arc like the other characters got because, again, she didn't need one. But here's where things get funky, because remember, the complete set is no longer 6. It is officially,
now we got the Death
in
Stone.
Everything, 7 stones, with the Death Stone being the 7th. And the new host of the Death Stone
is
Phil Coulson.
Who?
What?
Phil Coulson? Wait. You mean the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. dude? Phil Coulson? Didn't he also die? I know he, came back for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but apparently that continuity got, cut off. Why does he have it? Okay. I guess. I don't know what else to say to this, honestly. This is kind of crazy.
Okay, tangent time. I gotta do this quick. This video is already either just over or just under 2 hours. I haven't edited it yet, so I don't know the exact time. But we gotta hurry. Okay, Phil Coulson. We probably all know him. He's one of the most iconic S.H.I.E.L.D. agents from the MCU. However, what a lot of you might not know is that Coulson debuted in the MCU.
That I do know.
He was one of a very small list of characters that started in the movies and then went over to the comics afterwards. He first appears in a Nick Fury comic where he goes by the call sign Cheese, and then later they reveal that Cheese is actually Phil Coulson, and it was a huge thing that nobody was expecting, totally. Coulson was in a bunch of books during this early to mid-2010s era, kind of just out of nowhere. It is speculated, I want to make it very clear that this is speculation, that this was purely due to editorial mandate by Marvel. They wanted to put a popular MCU character into the comics, and so they told a bunch of writers, you have to put Coulson in things, you don't have any other choice.
I can see that happening. That kind of editorial happens all the time where they want to keep things going, and if they have a popular character in there or a character well known, then that might boost sales. It's a possible thing that they do.
The reason that this is highly speculated is that as time went on and we got into the late 2010s and the early 2020s, the attitude of writers towards Coulson shifted a little bit, and they made him evil. Super evil. Phil Coulson makes a deal with the devil. Despite originally being
that sounds like a bunch of writers who were forced to write character that they did not want to. He's probably right about the editorial.
Friendly agent guy who really loves superheroes and is kind of a dork. In the early 2020s, Coulson was a Satanist who hated superheroes, and so he sold his soul to Mephisto in order to acquire a reality warping artifact called the Pandemonium Cube, also known as the Helahedron, and he uses the Helahedron to warp everything into a universe where the Avengers no longer existed. They make him just incredibly evil out of the blue. It's
What
really
the hell?
weird. And this has led to the speculation that writers were bitter about having to
Oh,
include
yeah.
Coulson and
Sounds like
everything.
it.
And so once that mandate was over, they just wanted to kind of take out their anger on him. Again,
Looks like it.
speculation, but funny speculation. Shortly
Seems
after
like
that
it.
whole arc, once Coulson's reputation had been sent 6 feet under, Coulson himself was sent 6 feet under to follow, and he
Of
died,
course.
where he would remain for several years. Then, Thanos in 2024 traps Death and turns her into the Death Stone. But as
Yeah.
he says, he cannot control it. That is something of a plot point here. And in the Death Stone's next appearance, it follows the pattern of the other Infinity Stones and flies off to find its own host that is not Thanos.
Then that's
And
Phil
that
Coulson.
host is dead Phil Coulson, who the stone apparently resurrects and turns into the Grim Reaper?
What?
If
Why?
this sounds like a
Okay.
wild barrage of random things,
Yeah.
absolutely it is. But that is just what's been happening to Coulson the last couple of years.
Yeah, I guess someone wasn't that angry at him and wanted to bring him back. Maybe it was an old fan of the MCU. I don't know. Maybe they were actually happy to have him. I couldn't tell you. Sometimes writers just make decisions and I don't know why. But they definitely do make their decisions.
We don't know why Coulson was chosen as the host
Yeah.
of the Death Stone yet, but it does seem like they're setting something up, and so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that it will make sense once we have the whole story. As I said at the
Okay.
beginning of this section, these are all very recent developments that just happened last year, so they are very much still in the
Last
fold
year,
of things.
4 months.
Speaking of that, we are now about done
The
with
Infinity
current
Watch.
canon, as we have reached the most recent appearance of the Infinity Stones as the Infinity Watch, in a recent miniseries simply titled Infinity Watch.
Okay.
The villain of this is a guy named Avery Zavala, who was
Who?
an Infinity Stone wielder in another universe that was destroyed, who has then come to the main one to try and claim its Infinity Stones.
Of course.
Well, I will tell you the status quo at this series' end in just a second. I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, as I generally have a policy against covering the most recent comics for a variety of reasons. Plus, this one is worth checking out for yourself off of visuals alone. It does some really cool things with paneling. I don't want to show you all of these things because you really should see them in context for yourself to get the full effect, but just to get you a taste so that you're intrigued, Apex rips a caption box off the page and smacks the villain with it. They really
Apex doesn't really like cards. Apex doesn't know what that means.
play with the idea that these guys can warp reality in fun ways.
Okay.
Moving immediately to the end of the miniseries so that we can get the exact up-to-date canon status, the Infinity Watch as it stands today is kind of both together and separate at the same time, which is very intentional. Basically, the way that Marvel is handling this is that the Infinity Stones are still with their hosts, but the Infinity Stones themselves have decided that they are too dangerous to be used together. Thus, they will sort of alter fate and reunite the Infinity Watch whenever a crisis demands. Avery Zavala
So
was
they're
one
living
such
away
crisis,
from each
which
other.
is why all the hosts from very different walks of life came together into this team. At the end of the comic, they split up again, but with the teaser that if they are ever needed, they will rejoin. So it is kind of like an inversion on the classic Infinity Stones and Infinity Gauntlet story that we've seen so many times in the past. Except instead of being reunited by a villain for evil,
They are
the Stones are going to
disassembled
be
by heroes.
reunited by heroes for good.
Yeah.
That is the end of the Infinity Stone history for now. So the video could be over. But
But it's
no,
not
I have a
gonna
little
be.
bit more I want to do.
Oh,
because
no.
I've had to read a lot of Infinity Stone comics over the last couple
And
of
Infinity
days,
Watch, it
and in
seems.
that time, I have done some wild speculation. Time for crackpot theories.
Oh no.
The Death Stone is something. We don't exactly know what it is, but it is definitely being put into the comics right now for a reason. Whether that's the Thanos teaser that happened in Thor or something completely new, I don't know. But we know it's going to be relevant because of the way they're handling it and writing it. And that got me thinking. The stones are right now a set of 7. It is not 6 of them and then an extra. The core set contains the Death Stone. This is undeniable because not only do we see this stated on the page, we also see it stated in editorial pages. Last time on this series recaps and such. Those are usually pretty undeniable canon. Since I love the Infinity Circuit
Where
so much,
does it
I
fit right there in the
immediately started
middle?
wondering where the Death Stone fits into the circuit, because the circuit is still canon as well, so the Death Stone should slot into it.
Right here, I
But then
think.
that led me down another thread, which is that there are
Oh,
now
no.
7 stones. And Marvel doesn't really do 7s. I'm about to get into some
Do you think there's gonna be an 8th
deep
stone?
lore, and I will present it as best I can for people who don't have the context. That said, if you would like all the context, watch my first video that I did on Marvel Cosmology.
I already
mentioned it earlier in the video. That will expand upon all these little details with a lot more references and sources. See, Marvel might not do 7s, but they do love the number 8. The current incarnation of Marvel's reality is the 8th one in
That
the
is
multiversal
true. It was
cycle.
originally
This
7,
means
but-
that ISO 8 is also structured into 8 pieces, and so the fabric of reality rests heavily on that number.
On number
Hell,
8.
even their cosmic entities in recent canon are structured into a form of 8. There
That's
are 8
true.
beings called the Ur-Divisors, which are the main cosmic entities seen on the page. I laughed at that at first. I was like, huh, it's weird that there's
Ur-Divisors.
7 Infinity Stones and 8 of everything else. And then I just kind of paused and realized that if you compare the Infinity Stones to the Ur-Divisors, they line up weirdly well.
Really?
The main cosmic entities of Marvel are structured in 4
I know
pairs.
there's
The
one.
first pair is Infinity and
And
Eternity,
Eternity,
which
yeah.
represent time and space. I don't have to draw that connection. Those
Yeah.
are 2 names of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
The next 2 are Lord Chaos,
Chaos
and
and
Master
Master
Order.
Order.
And I think a comparison can be drawn between these 2 and the Power and Mind Stones. Chaos, movement, energy unbound, that's what the Power Stone does. As for the Mind Stone, order, logic, intelligence, or peace driving things. Order, mind, the connection is clear there too.
Yeah.
The most obscure pairing of the Ur-Divisors are also the newest, and also have very long names. They are called the Powers That Be and the Natural Order of Things, representing magic and science respectively.
Yeah.
The Soul Stone is an easy parallel for
Yeah.
magic. It deals with the immutable soul, existence beyond the mortal plane,
So you're
and
gonna say it with
morality in
reality.
many cases. Those are all very magical concepts. And while this one is admittedly a little bit shakier, I think the Reality Stone can be drawn
Yeah.
to science
I think
as
it
well.
can. Because
Even
it's
though the
the
Reality
order of
Stone
things.
might not look very scientific in its application, it kind of is at the foundation.
Yeah,
what the
there has
Reality
to be a
Stone
set
does
reality.
is change the way things are. It changes the laws of the universe. It alters physics. That is altering the science of reality. Finally, we have the most
So you decided
powerful
to
of
play
the
God.
Ur-Divisors, Oblivion and the Living Tribunal.
There's not-
Oblivion, well, Oblivion was actually killed by a cosmic god named Hadad recently, but he's an embodiment of nothingness. He can probably come back.
Probably.
Oblivion represents the primordial void before and after existence.
So
Oblivion
death.
is nothingness incarnate, as paradoxical as that might sound. And you can draw a connection between primordial nothingness and death. At this point, even I did acknowledge I might be stretching a little bit, but then while I was reading,
Okay,
I
so
found a line
the
that
void like
convinced
no other
me
black
further.
hole.
In the scene where Thanos is turning death into the Death Stone, he references where he gained the power to do that. He doesn't say how
Unknown
he did
space.
it, but he says he gained that
The
ability
nothingness.
in, quote, the wellspring of nothingness
A
itself.
dark crucible that led.
Which sounds like something that Oblivion would be related to.
True.
So where am I going with all this? 8 iterations of reality,
But
8
what
cosmic
would
powers
the
holding the
Death
whole thing
Stone
up,
be?
7 Infinity Stones. That doesn't seem right. I wonder if Marvel is setting up for an 8th stone.
It's
Logically,
possible.
an opposite to the Death Stone, probably a white Life Stone. This would make the Life Stone connected to the
Life
power
Stone,
of
huh?
the Living Tribunal, who is often represented as a cosmic embodiment of balance concerned with preserving existence, preserving life throughout reality.
True.
I was really liking this theory by now, but there was another piece of the puzzle that I wanted to make fit, the Infinity Circuit. Let's
Yeah.
run through the order again. Technically, you can start at any point.
To
but I'll
understand
start where I did
life, you must
previously.
understand
It
death.
goes space, time, reality, soul, mind, power, and then loops. For this theory to make sense, I would have to fit death and life in there.
Yep.
And then I realized something else. The parallels between the Infinity Stones and the Ur-Divisors are in order. Time and space is a pair, then it goes to the pair of reality and soul, magic
Yeah.
and science, then it goes to mind and power, chaos and order, and then it loops. So
Yeah.
reasonably, I can fit death and life in as a pair somewhere. Then we
Yeah?
reach to the final step, making it a narrative.
Okay.
If you've watched my other Marvel cosmology, you know this already, but narrative is the core function to how Marvel's cosmology works. Not just because it's fiction, like canonically, the Marvel universe is structured to flow like a story in universe.
Yeah,
With
I know
that
this bit.
in mind, here is my proposed new Infinity Circuit.
Okay, show
if
it.
I'm right about the Life Stone. We begin at life, creation. Then we go to the next pair of space and time. Space and time are the setting. They are where a story can take place. From the setting, we move on to reality and
I do
soul,
like the
magic and
disembodied hand
science,
for this.
The ways which characters can alter that setting. The ways that a character's will can be implanted on the world. Basically, the how. Then we move
how.
on to mind and power, order and chaos, which can be considered a pairing of motivation. These are the reasons why something might happen. Is it planned, orchestrated by some intelligent force of the mind, or does it happen by random chaos of power? Then
you never
we
know.
reach the natural conclusion once all the elements are
Death
present
Stone.
with the Death Stone. And the cycle begins anew as a new story is told. We have the creation of the story, we have the where, we have the how, we have the why, we have the conclusion. Then we have the new arc begin with the where, the why, the how, the conclusion, and so
And then
on.
we go on and on
Is
and on.
this just symbolism? No. I mean, it is symbolism, but it's not only that. Because if you'll recall one more time, well, not one more time, I have another thing planned.
Oh,
but if
dear
you'll
God.
recall this time, the canon reason why the Infinity Stones were created
Was because
is that
something
a cosmic,
existed?
all-encompassing being was lonely, and the Infinity Stones are remnants of its existence. The Infinity Stones, and again, this is not my headcanon, this is actual canon, were born out of a cosmic god's desire for the universe to grow beyond it.
Yeah.
And thus,
Life.
the stones are remnants of that desire, created in a cycle that keeps the storyline flowing and keeps the universe evolving so that that
Okay.
cosmic entity's will never dies out.
Interesting.
It's cool,
okay.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's a theory. This is all completely theoretical, but it's cool.
Yeah.
However, there is still one very dubious part of all this, which is that I did just make up an Infinity Stone.
Yeah.
There is no white Infinity Stone.
Yeah, there's not.
Or is there?
Oh, no.
Call back to the 1990s.
Oh, no.
when Marvel
He's going
introduced
too
the
deep,
first
everyone.
Extra Infinity.
He's going too deep. He needs to be stopped. Because, dear God, I don't think Marvel ever wants to reference that he had the whole crossover with the Ultra Force thing. Because, yeah. I don't think we're gonna... I'm guessing... Yeah, it was technically a white Infinity Stone, wasn't it? I would be surprised if they brought them back here, because all I know is the Ultra Dimension, or whatever you're calling it, doesn't exist anymore.
Gem to the set. The Ego Gem, which was on certain occasions drawn as white.
On certain
Now,
occasions.
it is, of course, referred to by people as the Ego Gem, not the Life Gem or the Life Stone. But remember what it does. It contained the last factor that unified the 7 Infinity Stones
That's true.
into a living being. Even though it was referred to as the Ego Stone, it is undeniable that what it actually did in practice was bring the other stones to life. This would be maybe the greatest called shot in the history of comic books.
That would be
But
insane.
I think that Marvel could be setting up to bring the Ego Stone back as the Life Stone parallel to the Death Stone, expanding
Maybe.
the Infinity Set and the Circuit to 8. 8 iterations of reality, 8
everything.
core cosmic beings, and 8 Infinity Stones. The core set of 8 pillars holding
gone
up
full
the
crazy.
canon cosmological existence of Marvel's reality. Am I right about any of this?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. Probably not. This is just one theoretical prediction of one of many, many ways that this could go, based on
We
reading
sure as hell
decades of
don't know
comics
how
to
it's
get
gonna
to this
go.
point. But still, I will say this for my theory. I can genuinely see it happening. Even though it might not be the most likely, it is entirely possible. Hell, go back to the vision of Thanos with the Death Stone. He's surrounded by an army of zombies. I
Yeah.
feel like if they are trying to build to that, then his army of zombies could be countered by someone wielding the Life Stone for the first time. To actually wrap up this video, though, with something other than crackpot theorizing, the Infinity Stones are odd. Just looking back at their history, as I just did, is a weird experience. For being such iconic items to not even
they
just
have a
Marvel
very
fans,
changing
but the general public,
stuff,
thanks to the movies, they have been one note for so much of their history.
Oh yeah, like they've changed names and probably abilities at least a bit, but they've kind of always been the same of being big MacGuffins that just kind of exist for a long time.
Get the cool rocks, control the universe.
Yeah,
that
pretty
story
much.
has been told in a million different ways. And actually, the same way a million different times.
Oh yeah.
Of course, it's no surprise as to why the Infinity Stones began getting reworked in the late 2010s to early 2020s. That's because of the Avengers movies. But rather than just doing the same thing, Marvel took the opportunity to make the Stones something new. Yes, there is some MCU synergy in the way that the Stones are now, but really not as much as you would expect, and that's because the MCU synergy kind of already happened decades ago.
That is
true. If Marvel wanted to bring the Stones back in the same way that they were in the movies, they couldn't do that because it's already been done multiple times. Hell, multiple times by Jim Starlin specifically.
Oh, yeah.
The MCU kind of forced them to do something new with the concept, and
Which
while it could have gone badly, I do think it, on the whole, went pretty well. The way that the Infinity Stones have been handled recently is not perfect. The Infinity Circuit is underused, and the Infinity Watch is also underused as well. These characters, despite being a fresh new take, don't appear very often, and we don't really know where they're going in the future. My own theories aside, seriously, you should take those with a grain of salt. Typically, this would be the point in the video where I say one of two things. I either say, yes, these characters or this thing will be showing up again, or no, I don't think these characters or this thing will be showing up again.
It's hard to know with these characters, honestly.
But in the case of the Infinity Stones, they will show up, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a coin toss as to how.
Yeah, they could
Marvel
just rip them from these characters, honestly.
These things. There is no way the Infinity Stones are gone for good. They are too important and iconic for that. But we're going to have to wait and see whether their next appearance is something new and interesting and unique, or if it's just Thanos gets them again.
I mean, he's done that before several times.
The Infinity Gauntlet, but I don't think we need that to happen another time.
Yeah, we've seen him done it like 20 times already. We don't need any more.
A good and unique path? I wouldn't mind, but only time will tell if this becomes reality.
Only the time zone can tell.
There's a space for it. The Stones have enough power to make these stories happen. And on my soul, I'll be waiting for it again if it's the death of me. You see what I did there? Rewind the video by like 20 seconds. You'll see what I did. There was no other way I could end this.
Oh, God.
Thank you all so much for watching. This video almost drove me to the brink of insanity. That's
understandable.
A regular occurrence with these features, but my God, the Infinity Stones have so many tiny little details. There were so many things I had to check and double check and then re-record because I got it wrong. Thank God the recording is finally complete. I'll do my announcements quick as always. First off, I have a Patreon. If you go over there, you can find early and ad-free access to all of my videos, as well as an exclusive video every month. There's over 5 hours of exclusive content on there and counting. My username on Patreon is the exact same as it is here. There's also a link to it in the description of this video and on my channel page. It's very easy to find. And extra double thank you to everyone who already supports me over there. It really does help me keep making these videos for you guys.
Nice.
Also, shout out to Ruben Perez, the artist I work with for these videos. He drew the poses of the character that you've been watching talk at
always
for the
support
last
the
2
artists.
hours. So go check out his other work if you have a chance.
And
now that I'm done, it's time for me to power down and... No, you know what? I'm amazed I pulled that bit off once. I'm not going to be able to do it a second time. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.
Oh my God. I still can't believe he got them all in. I only got the joke in once. But yeah, the Infinity Stones have been around for a long time. Originally gems, but still, it's kind of crazy just how long they've been around. The amount of stuff they've done with, which is mostly Thanos gathering them being scattered by Adam Warlock, then him scattering, them being scattered again, then reconnected, and then, well, I am glad they actually did some different stuff with them. The Infinity Watch seems somewhat interesting. Like, I'm not the most interested, but I am curious what they could do with them. But other than that, if you guys want more, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later. I need to go pass out now. Take care of yourselves and be good to yourselves, guys, as always.